This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
You are listening to the longest running, weekly, episodic comic book podcast in all Place to Be Nation.
Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys. When you hear this show, you better run for cover. Klondike Bill's a sausage lover. Ooh, Hard-Traveling Fanboys. It's a weekly podcast and you better listen. To keep your ears in mint condition. Ooh, Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Hello, ladies and germs, and welcome to another fine edition of the Hard Travelers for Hire. That's right, this is our monthly trek through the Marvel Cinematic Universe, film by film. We are the Hard-Traveling Fanboys. I am Greg Phillips. With me, as always, is Nick Duke in our luxurious Vancouver, British Columbian studios. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. One thing that people don't know about our L-shaped studios is that there in the corner where the two legs of the L meet, we actually installed a bed for certain times I don't think I need to say the name of. And right now, Greg and I are cozied up next to each other on that bed. And, well, there's nothing that gets me going like a little Chris Hemsworth.
That's right. You see, our flying longboats are at full sail at the moment. And I'm not talking about a university in Orlando, if you will. But with us on this journey, joining us.
Is it a dark journey?
I think it could possibly lead to a dark journey, depending on how this morning's breakfast goes.
It is a journey to the dark world, so would it be a dark journey?
Or dark passenger.
I was more thinking about a Four Horsemen ballet.
Oh, yes, absolutely. One that Tony Schiavone could have, if he wanted to, embarked on a journey with. But nevertheless, that's a non sequitur. Let's get back to a sequitur. And that sequitur is Todd Weber. Todd, how are you doing? Our dear, close personal, longtime friend and evil heel manager.
Well, thank you very much. I'm a little taken off guard because Howard Finkel didn't give me my introduction.
Oh, gosh. He couldn't make it, unfortunately. He's been in a terrible traffic delay, and he is currently been forced to announce the main event in Worcester, Mass., which is the Red Rooster versus the Brooklyn Brawler.
But luckily, we do have Gary Michael Capetta here to give it a shot.
Okay. So Fink's got the B show today. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Capetta?
Ladies and gentlemen, the following contest on WCW Pro. It features the manager, Todd Weber.
Very, very nice, Gary. Gary, Michael, Capetta, David, Frazier, Garner.
The 17th.
The 17th.
Very good. Todd, what in the world is going on in the Weberland this week?
I feel like it's been ages since we talked to you.
Yeah, we haven't talked in forever. It feels like I haven't talked to anybody on the PTBN pop feed in such a long time. We've got podcasts coming all over the place. We're guest starring on each other's shows. We're just a damn family at this point, I think.
Fam Damley.
That's right. Not unlike the damn Vaninator, the Van Daminator, the Van Terminator.
Good job. Good call, JR.
I guess I lost what I was about to say. It doesn't matter. I had visions of Russell Sellers jumping from ring to ring to stomp a garbage can through David Sunday's face. So
we've all done that to David Sunday at a time or two, or wanted to,
and it was awesome every time.
Yep. And he's done it to us. It's all fun. Well, we're here to talk about serious business, folks, because this week our journey through the MCU takes us to the next part of, I believe, Phase 2, is it, Nick, of the MCU? And this is the much-anticipated sequel to Thor. This one is known as Thor: The Dark World. This premiered November 8th, 2013 in the United States. I don't really care when it premiered in England. No offense to our English listeners.
Which we do have some.
We do have plenty, actually. Absolutely. They're great folks.
They are.
And we welcome their time and their commitment. But
you don't care about them. So.
No.
We don't care when movies were released in their country, is what we're saying. Because we didn't get to see them then.
We didn't get to see
them.
them.
They got to see them 2 weeks early.
Yeah. And that's cool. That's great for them. But what about us? What about Raven?
That was their consolation prize for losing the Revolutionary War.
Oh. Damn. Bringing up several 100-year-old wounds.
Well, we did wax that ass, Greg. I say we as if I had anything at all to do with it.
Oh, I'm sure your father...
Let's just move on.
Also claim
Let's
credit for that.
Wrong war.
You know, there were 13 colonies, and... let's... Woo!
All right. Now...
Kayfabe.
So, 2013 brought us this movie, and there were some changes from the first go-round of Thor. The most prominent change would be the change in directors, because leaving the director's chair was Kenneth Branagh, and replacing him was Alan Taylor, who is primarily known for his work in television on shows such as Game of Thrones, Lost, The West Wing, Sex and the City, Boardwalk Empire, etc. A lot of great TV shows he's worked on. Very little in the way of motion pictures, however. Terminator Genesis is on his resume, although that came after this movie, I believe. So
he did Terminator Genesis?
Yes, evidently. So pretty interesting right out of the gates. Now, before we get into the actual quality of this film, what were the general thoughts about the change in directors? We reviewed Thor here not too long ago, guys, and I think we all liked the movie, but I don't think it was certainly an all-time classic, but we all enjoyed it. What did we think about the switching directors in such a way? Todd, I'll start with you since you're the guest here.
I think it happened kind of along the whole line. No one director, with the exception of Joss Whedon, directed the actual sequel to the first film of which they were based upon. Favreau did direct Iron Man 2. That's correct. I forgot. Mm-hmm. But we've had Iron Man 3 at this point. So they've already changed the whole paradigm, if you will. Mm-hmm. Captain America had Winter Soldier, which came out in 2014, I believe, was about to change directors. So maybe this was the first director change and the signaled the winds of change, if I'm thinking about it, because nobody else had switched directors at this point. I liked a lot of what Branagh had brought, especially the regal majesty of the Asgardian stuff and dialogue and directing guys like Hopkins and Elba. But looks like with Alan Taylor, Game of Thrones is very much an action show, and so perhaps that was what Feige was hoping to get with this new change of course in directions for the film. You're getting somebody who's maybe more acclaimed to or acclimated to directing big set action pieces, and that's what we had been set up for here in Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah, Nick, your thoughts? I know you're a little bit higher on the first one than maybe many people are, even though I think most people like the movie. What were your thoughts on the switch in directors?
Obviously I wasn't thrilled when I first heard about it, but the more the film was kind of talked about during the pre-production stage, I started to get on board. But one thing I think we want to talk about, I don't know if you want to talk about it here or address it during our watch of the film, is this was kind of the first Marvel production to have something of a troubled production cycle. Alan Taylor wound up directing the film, but it's important to note that the original director of the film was not going to be Alan Taylor, but Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins was originally signed on to direct this and wound up leaving as a result of, quote, creative differences. This would become one of two Marvel films within Phase 2 itself to suffer that. The other being, of course, the Edgar Wright situation on Ant-Man that I'm sure we will address in the coming months on Hard Travelers for Hire. So I have to admit, walking into this one, I was a bit concerned just because this was the first time turmoil had really come to the MCU from a production standpoint. And I was interested to see what came of it.
Yeah, certainly an interesting turn of events. I was a fan of the first movie, and I agree with what Todd said, that Branagh added this sense of I think regality was the right word there. It was very much a regal Shakespearean kind of tone to the movie, which was cool, and certainly when the movie was at its best. But admittedly, where the movie fell short was in its action. And I think maybe this was an attempt to try to right that ship, so to speak. But yes, like Nick said, this was the first time we saw kind of the very strong editorial policy of Marvel Studios, the Jim Shooter-like editorial policy of Marvel Studios start to creep in, and maybe a little bit of supposed cracks were starting to show, and maybe some concerns starting to set in of, well, maybe directors don't like being dictated to as to what they can do with
We
their
had
films.
kind of heard the rumblings in between Iron Man 2 and 3, because that's one thing that Favreau had said openly, is that the only really unpleasant experience he had making Iron Man 2 was the fact that he felt kind of hamstrung, as opposed to the first one where he was really able to tell the story he wanted to tell. And so that led to the directorial change from Iron Man 2 to Iron Man 3, of course. But this was the first one where we had a film change directors mid-production, which was exceedingly odd at the time.
So before we start into the movie, what was everybody's expectations heading in? Todd, what were you expecting this to be better than the first, or were you kind of not really sure how it was going to go?
I was hoping for more of a Simonsonian Thor tale. That first Thor movie gets better and better the more you see it, I think. First time you see it, it was kind of underwhelming, and you dwell on the negatives. Hi, Natalie. But with the second one, I was expecting maybe a little bit more of that balance of humor on Earth and Asgardian royal majesty, regality, as we were saying. We coined that term. But we had a advertised, invasion of the Dark Elves. And so having read that kind of sequence back in the old days of Thor in the 80s with Walt Simonson, I was expecting maybe more out of that, or hoping for lots of that, and maybe seeing Thor really step up as a big alpha male. And so we'll see how that plays out as we watch this film.
Yeah, and I would argue that's kind of the way the film was marketed. Even they kind of presented it in the trailers and the pre-release stage as something of a Simonsonian adventure story. You were going to have. They would show you little clips of realm hopping. They would show you clips of dark elf invasions. They would show you a lot of things that on the surface would seem to be Simonsonian, but I don't know that they actually executed them in that fashion.
Yeah, and here's a quote before we start the movie from pre-production from Alan Taylor, the director. He says, "The main difference I have from Branagh's approach is really to do with the look and tone. Things look really dirty. The first Thor was quite shiny, and it was a very conscious, smart choice. When I came in, I wanted to get more of a sense of the Norse mythology, the Viking quality, the texture and weight of the history. He's a superhero, but he's been around for thousands of years. His dad is God." That's from Alan Taylor. So, with that being said, we've kind of set the stage a little bit for this film, and there might be a couple other changes that we'll get into casting-wise, one in particular, but we'll do that during the course of the film. And so, everybody, we're at 000 on our Blu-ray and DVD copies of Thor: The Dark World. So if you'd like to sync up with us, we're going to give you that opportunity right now. You can pause this podcast, go grab your DVD or Blu-ray, and now that you're back, you can hit play in 3, 2, 1, play. So the premise of this film has to do with the Dark Elves. Now, Todd and Nick, you two are Thor aficionados, have a lot deeper knowledge of the character and his mythos than I do. Tell the people out there what the basic idea of the Dark Elves and Malekith in particular is.
Well, yeah, Asgard, you have the 9 realms that are spoken of as part of, the world tree, Yggdrasil, I can't even say that word right, but you have a realm of the Light Elves. Yggdrasil, thank you. And I'm learning how to say all kinds of things lately, like Themyscira and Antiope that I had said wrong for years and years. And as I say this, my movie still hasn't started. Thanks, Apple. But I'll catch up with you guys. You can just tell me where as it gets synced up. But, you had Light Elves who were kind of servants or happy, and it's almost like Dungeons and Dragons cliches. Mm-hmm. And then the Dark Elves were more of a warrior-like race, never necessarily content. They were getting involved in affairs that they weren't necessarily a part of, and they were antagonists in general. And just it's kind of a cliche, light versus dark, but that's what's going on.
Yeah, and speaking more about Malekith in particular, he was always portrayed as something of an outcast among the warrior-like dark elf population. Todd mentioned that they were never really content. They were constantly seeking, conquest and nefarious means and stuff. And Malekith obviously had a level of that, but especially during the Walt Simonson run, I hate to use this comparison because so many people use it all the time and it's often misused. But I would argue he's probably the closest in terms of characterization to the Joker that Thor has in his villains gallery, because it's not just a matter of doing bad things. It is a matter of taking such joy and pleasure in doing these bad things. And that's really kind of what always set Malekith to me apart. He was always going to be the guy doing this dastardly hate-filled thing, but doing it with a smile on his face. And that was an element in this film that I can admit now they did not translate whatsoever, and it's probably the biggest disappointment in this characterization of Malekith.
Now, we're starting the movie here with a flashback sequence showing Malekith and kind of his origin story, if you will. And one thing that strikes me is Malekith kind of looks not unlike that Willem Dafoe Green Goblin mask test that we watched a few weeks ago, Nick.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. One thing that I didn't even catch, I don't know if I caught it the first time I saw the movie, but I'm noticing now on his chest plate, he's got a star emblem. Todd, I don't remember the star emblem being there during the Simonson run. Was that there? Because it kind of looks like the Captain Marvel star.
Well, the Malekith Simonson design was almost like a court jester.
Right, yeah. It had the red, the blue, like
reddish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall the star iconography at all. So
interesting.
Yeah, like Novacor or something here.
Right. I was thinking the Captain Marvel, the yellow star in the center of the chest, but whichever.
Now playing Malekith here is Christopher Eccleston, who is going to be playing the big bad in this film, Malekith. I don't know much about Chris Eccleston. I know he comes from Doctor Who lore. Todd, are you? I don't even remember. Do you watch Doctor Who? Are you a Whovian?
I watched that first Eccleston season, and he was kind of chaotic and happy, and kind of inventing the Doctor Who or reinventing the Doctor Who role. I just had the title screen, or I just had Thor: The Dark World show up. So I don't know where. Okay. Oh, nice. That's great. But I knew him better actually from Heroes. That first season of Heroes, where they'd cast him as the Invisible Man, or as kind of a mentor for Peter Petrelli, and I liked him in that role quite a bit. Also, I've seen him in The Leftovers, where he has quite a different role, a very serious preacher type role, not like Jesse Custer, but where he plays a man of God, which is very different for what you'd expect out of him. So I was expecting maybe a lot of gravitas and malevolence out of Eccleston, just because I thought he would be a great choice for this, depending on the direction. And look, there's Loki in chains, and Loki wasn't initially even a part of this film, as I recall correctly.
I actually didn't know that. What's the story behind that?
I think Loki was just kind of, his story was done by Avengers, and people responded to him so well that they had to throw him in, or were motivated to make him a bigger part of this film instead of just referring to him, instead of spending the money. Because Hiddleston is, as we know, we've said over and over, is the premier villain in the MCU. And, he's even better in this one. But he, I think they just realized what they had in him in Avengers. And so, we can't have a Thor movie without Loki. And, the best Thor stories in comics have Loki at the root of them.
Right. I think you're right. Because by the Avengers, if it wasn't evident in Thor the Avengers made it evident that Hiddleston was the preeminent villain in the MCU and was the most charismatic non-main hero character that they had introduced to that point. So, yeah, definitely had to bring him back and had to get him involved somehow in the film. And in this case, we're seeing kind of the ramifications of what happened in the Avengers play out as Odin sentences Loki here for his violations.
Yeah, meddling in Midgard.
Meddling in Midgard. That sounds like a nice title for a biography or something. Or at least a historical epic. Nick, your thoughts on this early sequence here and Loki's involvement in the film in particular?
Gotta admit, I kind of got sucked in there while you guys were talking, just kind of watching it, because even though Branagh is not here, Hopkins and Hiddleston still both bring the intensity to the point where that scene just looped me in, even though I can't hear the dialogue because we're watching on mute, just watching the subtitles. But those two are just so perfectly cast and perfectly portray those roles. Admittedly, Hopkins hasn't gotten a ton to do thus far in the Thor franchise. Only a handful of scenes, really. Being that he spent a lot of the first film in Odin's Sleep, and here he'll be off screen for a lot of this one as well. But yeah, obviously glad that Hiddleston came back. I had not heard that about him not being planned to be involved in the in this one, but it makes a lot of sense after his reception in the Avengers. He was outstanding. But here we transition to a shot of Thor, the Lady Sif, and the Warriors 3 in action, and that pop-up said Vanaheim, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's where Disneyland is, if I recall correctly.
Well done, sir. Well done. And Todd, perhaps my Thor knowledge is just failing me at the moment, but in a couple of moments, they're going to present Hogan as being a native of Vanaheim, and I do not remember that being the case in the comics.
I don't think so either. I mean, Hogan to me was always just a true Asgardian.
Yeah, he was. The implication I always got from him is that, so in the films, they show Asgard kind of as just the Golden City, but to me, Asgard was, obviously the city, but also a realm outside it. And I always thought that Hogan was like one of the guys from like one of the smaller villages of Asgard that just wasn't a part of the royal family, so to speak.
I think he was from Venice Beach of Asgard.
Yeah, absolutely. Venice Beach. I was going to say Hogan really didn't make any impact until Hall and Nash showed up. But that's neither.
I got to say, Thor's hair looks so much better in this film than it does in the original Thor film. I think even in Avengers it was much improved, but here it looks much more natural, less wiggy. His beard even looks better. And he's having this conversation with a rock giant, it looks like. Who is this guy?
This looks guy, I do not know the name of the character, but actually if you go back and look at the very first Thor Journey into Mystery story, this is actually the first villain that Thor ever faced in Marvel Comics. This is actually, that's who the appearance was based on.
Who looks like Hanu, the Green Lantern rock creature.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Or Block from Legion of Superheroes. Hey, look, that's a new Fandral.
Yep. So Zachary Levi, right, is this guy's name, who
Chuck
was famous for Chuck, on NBC. He was originally supposed to play Fandral in the first Thor movie and could not due to scheduling conflicts, and he was instead played by some other guy.
Josh somebody from Once Upon a Time on ABC.
It's Josh something. You'd have to look it up.
So I have to ask the question, guys. Why did they just give it? Why did they not bring Josh back to play Fandral?
Same thing. I think there was a scheduling conflict. It just didn't work out, and so when they had that opportunity for Zach Levi to be looped back in, they just brought him back in. And I wish I could say it makes an impact of any kind on the film, but it really kind of doesn't, because the Warriors 3 have even less to do in this film than they did in the first, which is kind of a disappointment.
Yeah, and here is just a beautiful shot of Asgard.
I never, like, we talked about this in the first Thor film, but the concept they went with for how they portray the Rainbow Bridge in these films is something I never would have thought of, but it's absolutely brilliant, and it absolutely works.
To me,
the fucking Ravens, man.
And that's very Asgardian, very true Norse mythology is Odin with his ravens.
And that's one thing you're going to notice that's going to happen throughout the course of this film is there's a lot of aspects of this that if we look at it objectively, I'm not really going to be able to defend or justify. But this movie throws so much cool shit to the Thor fans, like the shots of the ravens. Later on, we'll get to the flying longboats, that I wind up liking this movie a lot more than I have any right to.
The Great Odin's Raven, the this is when these Thor movies are at their best, in my opinion.
I
When they're
agree.
on Asgard, when they're focusing on leaning heavily into the Norse mythology, leaning heavily into the visual spectacle that is Asgard. I love just watching the Rainbow Bridge, looking at the castles of Asgard and the kingdom itself around Odin, Sif and her training and all this stuff. This is all great stuff. And I think this is when the films are at their best, and when they're at their weakest is when they trek into Midgard.
Well, isn't that meta, right? Because Asgard is supposed to be much better than Earth.
That's true.
But I don't think that's the intention of the direction.
No.
It's not supposed to make it an unwatchable film.
Oh,
when you
it's
go to-
watchable right now. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Nick just
Control
moved.
yourself, Nick.
Mm.
Good Lord. You guys
So
don't. wanna
Asgard
see
has
them.
moons, huh? Or a moon.
Mm. It's a
Nick wishes it had another moon at this
Yeah,
point.
Nick wishes there would be a full moon over my hammy or whatever.
I'll full moon over his hammy.
Yeah, so how should we describe the basic plot of this film as opposed to the first one? The first one obviously involved in Thor coming down to Midgard, Loki trying to work his trickery, and of course the giant destroyer robot at the end. This one is primarily Malekith seeking revenge, correct? Seeking some sort of...
Well, not just seeking revenge, but also seeking to reobtain the power of the Aether, which is something that he had long ago during the convergence, whenever the planets align and enables the realms to kind of cross over, which enables, I believe that the idea is that by using the power of the Aether, which we will later find out it is indeed an Infinity Stone, he can actually destroy multiple realms simultaneously. And I believe the idea here is that he is seeking to regain that.
And that to me almost felt forced. Like, okay, let's do this. Let's bring the Infinity Stone to the forefront as in earnest, almost. Let's build a movie around that.
Honestly, every time in this movie that they start talking about the Aether, I kind of zoned out a little bit, especially on multiple rewatches. Like, I rewatched this on HBO maybe a year and a half ago, and I found myself just kind of nodding off whenever they would talk about the Aether and what the Aether could do and the Dark Elves and all that stuff. And I was just like, all right, let's just get back to cool stuff on Asgard. And now we're on
There
Earth.
is so much more chemistry between Thor and Sif than there is between Thor and Jane. I mean, but here's
right.
Jane. Jane's with, what's his name from Bridesmaids.
Yeah.
Who is this guy?
Chris O'Dowd, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, he's done lots of things over the years, but had a cool HBO show, and he was on Girls, also on HBO.
And what's crazy is even these brief scenes they have together in this film, she has a lot more chemistry with him than she does with Thor, with Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah,
it's a weird set of circumstances.
Yeah,
maybe she's just into funny guys instead of beautiful, serious guys.
I think because maybe he draws a little bit of personality out of her, which she showed none of in the first movie. And in this one, it's hit or miss. But she's good here because this seems like more of a Natalie Portman type movie when you're on a date with some weird guy and it's not going well, as opposed to when you're having to talk with somebody about 9 realms and ether and all this stuff. So this is part of the movie that kind of drags me down in both movies is all the Earth stuff. I think this does it a little bit better than the first one in terms of I don't hate Jane Foster in this one like I did in the first one. I just kind of am ambivalent towards her. And Kat Dennings, I think, is a little bit less annoying in this one than she was in the first one. But, it's just not terribly interesting, I guess, is my Cliff's Notes on all this stuff going on. I don't care about these people. I don't care about their relationship.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a big diversion at this point. We had profound things happening with profound circumstances, and now we're just we're on a date in London. London looks nice. Hey, that was the Stone Man from Saturn was the name of the character that Thor destroyed with Mjolnir earlier in the
from
film.
Saturn. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Jim Cornette gimmick right there.
Yeah, it was
that's
typical, Stan Lee thing.
That's a Silver Age Stan Lee thing, yeah, from the first Journey to Mystery. Yeah, I can't disagree with the fact that they don't exactly pull off the Midgard stuff very well here, but I understand why it's there, because part of the Thor story has always been you have to humanize him in some way. You have to illustrate his connection to Midgard and make the audience feel and understand why he loves it so much, and that is something they haven't quite nailed to this point in the franchise. But it's also a necessary element. You have to at least attempt to show it. So I can understand why this is here.
I don't understand why it sucks, though, is the problem.
Yeah, I don't know.
I love London. London is not my second home, but I've been there a couple times. It's my favorite city that's not in America, and it is nice. You're getting a nice thing, but it's kind of randomly picked here, I think.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure why London is the preeminent city either, but I mean it's a decent setting, cool city, and all that. But one of the aspects that I also don't like about these Thor movies is Jane Foster has no character except Thor love interests. Like, she doesn't. Yes, she's smart, but
we have naked Skarsgård.
That's pretty good. But everything that she does in the movie is built around her thinking about Thor constantly. And it really, they don't do enough to make her feel like she is, and this is not just exclusive to the Thor movies either, but they don't do enough to make her feel like she is a character of agency, really. That being said.
And Jane always had a relationship with, the Donald Blake aspect of Thor back in the day before the day. So that current comics relationship is based upon all that history. So it's kind of reinventing the wheel, and I don't mind necessarily the fish out of water aspects of when Thor comes and tries to have this relationship with Jane. But I get the vibe that she, as opposed to, say, Gwyneth Paltrow or somebody, Portman just acts like she's not that into this, and it translates. And there's birds. Yeah. Are those the ravens or the ducks? I couldn't tell.
I think they were just random pigeons.
Okay, so not everything is a thing here, but she just comes off as better. She acts like she's better than this, and I don't know if that's my own personal biases or if it's just her not quite fitting into the Marvel paradigm.
Yeah, it's a bad fit. I mean, it's reminiscent of her turns in Star Wars in terms of her lack of investment, I guess. But nevertheless, and a lot of that comes down to writing too. I don't want to put it all on her, but here we're seeing the weird after effects of these portals that are going across, and what is going on here for those who don't know what's going on? What are we seeing right now on the screen?
I don't think this is intended to be an adaptation of any particular story from the comics. So it's one of those things where it's slowly going to be revealed over time. But basically what is happening is once every so many years, as the old stories go, the 9 realms perfectly align. Kind of like if you've ever seen the old Disney film Hercules, you remember that? How the planets align and they open the vortex for the Titans to come back. Similar concept here, where once the realms align, it creates these crossover points between the multiple realms and the multiple realities, and it creates these distortions in reality here, where things are jumping from one realm to another, or where gravity itself is affected. It's these bleed points, I guess you could say.
Someone just got killed by that can dropping into another dimension. Murderers, these people, all of them. So when it comes to this plot and the general story here, what were your thoughts on the general story, Todd? Did you find it interesting? Were you invested in the story per se, or did you find yourself kind of mainly watching for the characters and not really into the story?
Like everything, I like the Asgardian stuff better than the Earth stuff. So every time we switch back, it's like, okay, well, why? And is it interesting enough? And here we're getting Jane seeing that we're seeing readings on the scale that are not unlike when Thor came. When they happened upon his Bifrost transmission to Earth, and so she's having deja vu. It's happening here. I don't know. It just doesn't quite feel. I think they just spend so much more time on this part of things when they could be perhaps having more of a high energy translation of things. I think they're just putting so much more time into this part of the story that they don't need to. And so we're kind of like, well, the plot is let's just get Thor and Jane together and see what happens. I mean, we're not seeing any active involvement from the Dark Elves, and I don't think that prologue necessarily set up enough of motivation for what's going on.
I agree.
Like you're watching this and it's like, what's going on? This doesn't tie into anything. It almost feels random at this point. So I don't think they're doing a good enough job explaining it yet.
Agreed. I did enjoy Jane looking at what appeared to be one of the PKE meters from Ghostbusters there. So to look at the incredible levels of what's going on. I did like, however, how they made the ether look. I think it has that kind of ominous red, glowing, viscous fluid, as JR might describe it. Yeah. And it looks cool.
So and it looks a little bit like the symbiote effect from Spider-Man 3, which was a cool effect.
Yeah, like the Upside Down from Stranger Things, if you've seen that.
That.
Like a space that's over the space, right. Another dimension.
And now Jane has been infected by the not symbiote, but ether. And
it's almost just like Natalie Portman touched a regular human being and she's feeling like, oh my gosh, I've got to wash my hands right now.
Icky. Ew. And now we see a giant spaceship, which is always cool. We don't see a lot of those in the MCU. Oh, wait, actually we do see a lot of those in the MCU, thanks to Guardians and Avengers. I forgot.
Guardians.
But nevertheless, this is a pretty cool ship. It looks like something out of Alien to me.
Yeah. This is definitely a cool design. I don't really recognize it as anything inherently dark elvian from the comics or anything, but it's a cool design nonetheless. And so here we go. Malekith is awaking from a long slumber. I believe he had somehow set his technology to only awake him from the sleep whenever the aether was found once more. So interesting.
This brings a point I wanted to ask. You were talking earlier about what Malekith is in the comics and how they didn't necessarily illustrate that here. Right away, we're seeing this character of Malekith, who, again, I don't know from the comics, so this is my only exposure to him. Malekith appears to be very cold and distant here, like almost unemotional.
Yes.
What, in your opinion, did that serve the movie? Did that hurt the movie? Did that, not really have any effect on the movie? What were your thoughts on the decision to make Malekith kind of a cold and emotionless character?
Oh, I think unquestionably it hurts. It hurts from the standpoint of when you're trying to present these. I mean, one thing that Marvel has always courted is fan support. And when you choose to alter a character so drastically that he pretty much becomes the character in name and slight appearance similarities only, it doesn't help in that respect. But also, you're coming off of the first film where, granted, Tom Hiddleston's performance is absolutely amazing, but one of the things that makes him such a great villain in that first Thor movie is the emotional connection he has to Thor. And with Malekith being so cold and emotionless and distant, it suffers in terms of that comparison so much.
I would much rather see Redneck Joker as Malekith at this point. That characterization. He's an agent of chaos.
That's terrific. How cool does all of this stuff look, by the way?
It's great. Man.
Holy crap.
It's great.
It is. The visuals are pretty spectacular. I wouldn't change a thing. All this stuff at Heimdall Station on the Rainbow Bridge is just like spectacular and truly using great CGI and high def. And there's a sad look, it's Natalie Portman.
This isn't so good.
This is.
No, I was just saying that, and then there she is. She's floating on.
This is X3 Natalie Portman, Phoenix Force style.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that I agree with what you were saying there, Todd. The visuals on Heimdall Station were amazing, and then they followed it up with some of the cheesiest visuals that we've seen to this point in our journey through the MCU.
I mean, I think this movie could have been And it's not a bad movie. We've said that over and
Right.
over. There are no bad MCU movies
Right.
to this point. It's not like Iron Fist, which is much worse than the rest of the Netflix shows. All of the MCU movies are a 3 out of 5 or better. And this one is a 3 at this point. I think it's just if they had done a better job with casting or direction on the Jane Foster character, I think things would be a lot different. It just doesn't, that one linchpin doesn't quite hit for me. The connection with Thor, the gravitas that's needed for the role, it just doesn't, it's never connected, even on the first one. And so,
Or even if
I don't know what it is.
even if they had, instead of doubling down on it in this second one, even if they had instead shifted to Lady Sif as being the primary love interest, or shifted that and made, or even done away with the sort of romantic angle
Right.
from the movie, it probably would have benefited it.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a female lead or romantic interest, and you can have a sister type.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had flip-flopped that for the second film, I think you would have had a much, much different thing. Also, I mean, the way they directed Malekith is unfortunately flat and doesn't quite feel like a huge threat to Thor, or why we should care. Or if it's such a big threat, why aren't any of the other Avengers getting involved at this point? It's just Thor-centric.
Did we ever determine, by the way, and you guys can help me on this, I'll admit that my memory is completely blank on this right now. How was Thor able to go back to Midgard? Wasn't he cut off?
Loki makes a reference to that when he first encounters him in the Avengers, when he asks him, how much dark magic did the Allfather have to conjure to summon you here? So the implication is that using the Odin Force directly, Odin is able to move people from realm to realm, and I am assuming that he has imbued Thor with some of that power in order to be able to do that on his own. But also, I would imagine that the Bifrost is also being worked on. We do see it. At the end of the first Thor film, they break off not just the end of it, but the entire Heimdall watching area there, and he had rebuilt the watching area, and so you get the implication, or I do anyway, that the Bifrost is slowly being restored to optimal power.
Nevertheless, I feel like when something is a huge plot point like that in one movie, it should be delved into a little bit more going forward. Now, we both talked about this at the time, and we agreed Avengers couldn't have really wasted the time on explaining that, but I feel it could have been developed in this one.
Well, at the same time, though, they've already kind of explained it in Avengers, so why do you want to... It's a thing where you don't really need to pause and go back, I don't think. Like, I mean...
Well, then don't do it in Thor,
What now?
Then don't do it in the first place in Thor if you're going to have him.
Well, they wanted a cool visual, and it's one of those things where there are so many things about these films you can get hung up on. That one isn't a particular one that bugs me a ton.
So Thor can basically go at will between realms.
At this point,
This point.
Yes.
And he could after Avengers, or I think Avengers was where
the
it changed,
first
right?
instance of him being able to move. That's the implication I get anyway.
Why hasn't he... If Jane Foster is all that, why hasn't he been back since then?
He just said that he had been off tasked with other missions by the Allfather.
Okay. I
Of course,
do
then again,
enjoy
here, it looks like
Go
the
ahead.
Bifrost is operational again, so I don't know. Svartalheim.
all right. Svartalheim.
Svartalheim.
I do-
Is this where Step John Sejic comes from?
No, this is where
Yes.
Malekith comes from.
Oh, perhaps they're one and the same.
Perhaps Step John Sejic is Surf John Stajic, which is Malekith. Sorry, Todd, what were you trying to say? I kept interrupting you with my...
Did you say Suf John Stevens, who's an excellent musician?
Yes.
Oh, look, is that Tuvok from Star Trek Voyager?
I thought it was Dr. Echo or Mr. Echo.
It is Mr. Echo. It is, but he looks a lot thinner here. He's also Killer Croc, if I recall correctly.
Oh my God, he is, yeah. And he will soon become the classic Thor villain Curse in this film.
He just got a BET, so he's doing good, according to Suicide Squad.
So, and then we have these ladies playing light harps. What's going on here?
This is these are Asgardian healers using their Asgardian technology to try and examine Jane to determine what exactly is causing the bizarre energy outburst she had back on Midgard.
The answer: female problems.
Frozen vagina.
Dust in her hooch?
It does look that way a little bit. Ooh, she's got sassy responses.
That was a good smile.
Yes.
It's a nice smile, Hemsworth. I like it.
I agree.
So Asgard has their own like purple room or purple ray kind of thing going on, and they have healers. They have different classes of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this to me felt the weirdest of the whole film was the Natalie in Asgard aspect of it. And we haven't even seen Frigga yet, have we?
Yeah, she was at the beginning of the film. She actually spoke to Loki before Odin even handed down the sentence.
I missed that. I might have skipped through that, but
which you're going to get her again in a couple of scenes here, and she actually has more scenes in this one than she does the first one. Funnily enough,
I think Frigga is one of the best parts of this movie. Actually,
I agree with that.
But vastly underutilized in both films, I would argue.
Yeah, Renee Russo is Frigga, correct? And
yes,
yep.
And she's a long time favorite of mine from the Lethal Weapon days. So good job in this movie. She does, and they do.
I like her in the Thomas Crown Affair personally.
That's a great with Pierce Brosnan, and also good in Get Shorty.
Yeah. I always forget she was in Get Shorty, so I haven't seen it in a while. But yeah, she's good, and they need to do more with her in the future. But she was telling tales out of school, perhaps, but she does a good job in this one, and I would like to have seen more of her and less of the Earth people. But again, that gets into my own personal preferences of what I want to see out of these movies like Thor and like Green Lantern and like some of these more cosmic type movies. I like to see more of the cosmic stuff, and I don't really need to see the Earth stuff as much.
I like these animated books.
Yeah,
that's really neat. That's a nice touch. Anything that makes these look fantastical and different from our normal reality, I like. I like the weirdness and the.
That's why I still maintain the best version of a Thor movie, even though I like these two more than most. The best version of a Thor movie to me is almost doing like Lord of the Rings done through the MCU like filter, and they haven't really attempted that yet. They've been so obsessed with Midgard and Earth-based stuff to the detriment of the films ultimately, and it looks like Thor Ragnarok is going to be more focused on taking it out into space and trying to be more Guardians of the Galaxy like in its approach.
It does.
It's just very concerning to me that it seems like my ideal version of a Thor movie doesn't really seem to be on their radar.
No, and the Jason Aaron Thor comics are so good. If you go back and read from the very first one with Assad Ribbits, just that whole storyline with the God Butcher and things. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I want a Thor movie like that. God damn it!
Or even the follow up story where they do the League of Realms and they're hopping from realm to realm and going on like these long, epic like Lord of the Rings style journeys. Man, there's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of potential there, and it just.
To me, it's another example of Hollywood not learning the right lessons from movies. Because remember, before Guardians, that was a thing. Studio executives thought you could not do a superhero movie or a comic book movie or a fantasy movie that wasn't in some way based on Earth. That if you had a superhero movie, in other words, Green Lantern can't be in space. He needs to be on Earth or else people can't relate to him. You can't relate to someone who's just in space, even though Star Wars, Star Trek, etc. have proven that wrong. For whatever reason, that was a thing with superhero movies until Guardians. But now, instead of taking the lesson of Guardians, which should be, we can do whatever we want with a superhero movie. We can put it in any setting. Maybe they're taking that to mean let's do more stuff in space, which is great. But again, it doesn't make any sense why you wouldn't try to do a Thor movie in that Lord of the Rings kind of epic fantasy vein. But nevertheless, here we see back in Heimdall's area, which is always tremendous. And who are these creatures they're bringing in, Nick?
These are implied to have been various cast-offs and criminals from throughout the Nine Realms that they're bringing in to shut down the various rebellions and wars and battles that Thor has been tasked with going out and stopping after Loki's actions kind of set the Nine Realms into chaos. And one of those is very obviously a plant, because we just saw Malekith give his underling Algrim the gift, or should I say the curse, of a certain ancient dark elf power. And so he is now here waiting to activate that power, where he will become, as I said earlier, the MCU version of the classic Thor villain Curse.
Now, how does his gift... Oh, go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to say, didn't Odin just tell Loki, you're never going to talk to Frigga again?
He did. He did
you
tell her
remember that scene? And guess what? Oh, maybe she's here.
Yeah.
I definitely have a, I don't know. There's a classic adult film series called Taboo that is reminding me of quite a bit.
Oh.
You do have quite a sexual chemistry here between.
Spank it.
Yeah, my interpretation is that Frigga is doing this behind Odin's back.
Yes.
And
because even when he appears
that's true.
In the beginning, when he first appears, she speaks to him almost out of I got it.
She loves him. She loves Loki, and in some way he loves her, even though he has hatred for his father, his
right
artificial.
And so
father.
they mentioned that she actually taught him a lot of the magic that he knows. So what they just showed you there with her disappearing is she is actually using her magical abilities to appear to Loki rather than having to go there physically, so as not to be caught by Odin. Is the implication?
So the curse is kind of a plant here on
Yes.
this. I don't want to say Suicide Squad, but this group that's come in to take care of Thor's responsibilities while he shifts his focus to the Dark Elves.
Mm-hmm.
And here we see Padme talking to Annie about all the
Your
beautiful
skin is
greenery and
soft.
flowers around them.
That's
The
not
sand.
Listen here. Say what you will about Natalie Portman, but you compare Chris Hemsworth to Annie, and we're going to have some issues. Assholes.
Oh, look at the field, Annie. It's so beautiful.
There's no field, there's water. Oh,
They
what a
were
lucky-
younglings.
What a lucky woman.
So I was going to ask you, Nick, is this character's gift that he was given, is it similar to the gift that was given to Zack Sabre Jr. that we noticed in our recent watch of NJPW?
No, because apparently, as we saw earlier, the Curse Stone fits in the palm of one's hand, whereas the gift that was given to Zack Sabre Jr. fits in the palm of about 4 hands.
3 or 4 hands.
Yeah.
You guys remember in Orlando, I was right behind Zack Sabre Jr. in the private bar line downstairs.
Oh God!
At the OLE.
And yet you maintain both of your eyes, which is remarkable.
You know what? It was my proudest moment in Orlando. I got to say, you had great I said, great matches today. Dude had fucking 4 matches that day.
Mm-hmm.
And he was there just hanging out watching Kaiju with his friends. But it just was something I had to do off the cuff. I had to tell Zack Sabre Jr., dude, you're great job, and not mark out or anything. But he's right there in the beer line in front of me. I should have offered to buy for him, you know?
Absolutely.
The guy was...
Then one thing might have led to another, because we noticed if you watch the next time Zach does a bridge spot.
He was in the beer line in front of you, but his dick was actually picking the drinks up on the other side of the bar.
Well, not to tell tales out of school.
So try to watch some New Japan on Access and not see it now, Todd, because it's good lord.
He is gifted.
Good for him.
And a great wrestler to boot.
Yep.
But nevertheless, he's not in Thor: The Dark World. But who is this not amazing looking Curse here?
With a K. Curse with a K.
Curse, Kurse, Curse, yes.
Man,
And those jowls, those tusks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I love all the stuff with Loki in his cell in this. The stuff visiting with Frigga was amazing, I thought. One of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. And then, of course, when we see Thor break Loki out here in a few minutes, it's one of the highlights of the movie to me. The funniest scene in the movie by far, when he transforms, as we're going to see here in a few minutes. Now we see the stare between Loki and Curse. And this is another interesting aspect here. Loki, who's this sniveling villain, but does have some affection for Frigga, and thus what's about to happen is going to affect him. At least seemingly. Who knows with Loki if he's bullshitting or telling the truth.
Always hard to tell, and I think that actually is one of the things some people may be frustrated by, but I like it. It's very true to the comics. You never can get a good read on what exactly his motivations are. It's
and see,
very difficult. Oh God,
That's what's interesting to me.
That's a great scene.
oh.
Yeah. You referred to Malekith as being the Joker of Thor, and I guess the reason I think of Loki in that role is because, like the Joker, you're never sure if he means anything by what he's saying, or if he's deliberately misleading you, or if he thinks that you're going to think that he's deliberately misleading you. So he's
Right. I guess I look at Loki because I always think of him as having purpose behind everything he does, even if we as the audience don't understand the purpose. Always has machinations or grand plans, so to speak. Whereas the Joker, I look more as that agent of chaos, so to speak, that just does things to do them, and that's kind of the analogy I was trying to draw.
Volstagg is just not fat enough for me.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
There is not a human being this side of a independent wrestling show large enough to play Volstagg in a film.
What's his name? Bull Dempsey would have made a great Volstagg.
Wouldn't do it.
Or just bring it to the guy who played Cannon would have been a great Volstagg.
Former Kansas University football coach Mark Mangino could have played a fantastic Volstagg.
Pear-shaped loser, Mark Mangino. That's to quote Jim Rome. Who was trying to think? You just mentioned somebody. Who did you mention before? Mark Mangino.
The guy who played Cannon.
Yes. Not Orson Welles, but there was it was Jake and the Fat Man, wasn't it?
Yeah, Jake and the Fat. He was the Fat Man. Yeah,
it was Fat Man.
Guys, we just saw, right here we're seeing Heimdall running towards these invaders because he is angry. They have somehow eluded his sight for the most part. But one thing important that we saw when he ran out of his citadel, so to speak, you actually saw the repaired cracks in the Bifrost from where they had fixed the damage from the first film. So they actually give you a little visual cue, visual callback to that.
Also, this is a great scene. This whole invasion scene is awesome, I think. I think it's one of the best scenes in the movie. Again, because it's on Asgard, so it's great. We're seeing these vertical ships flying away, which reminds me of a movie, and I don't know where I've seen vertical ships like this before. Maybe it's in the... But I think did we see
they're B-Wings.
B-Wings. There are B-Wings in the original trilogy.
Okay.
And also in the prequel trilogy, and also in the trailer for The Last Jedi. Or I don't know if there are B-Wings in the trailer for The Last Jedi, but they are certainly
vertical
ships. Have characteristics not unlike ships that could potentially be considered to be B-Wings.
Are they character baby faces?
That's what the B stands for.
So all this stuff is great. I mean, this is...
Oh!
And here's Nick orgasming.
Oh!
Wow, it's a rowboat with wings.
Yep, I don't care.
Exactly.
Mock me all you want to. It is the equivalent of taking some of the hokier concepts of any comic book property and somehow improving upon it and making it work in the context of a film. And it is something I never thought I would live to see. And thus, it gets an
Spaceships. There's Heimdall. So Idris Elba, who plays Heimdall, said that he hated working on this film and the constant reshoots were exhausting and time-consuming. So he also described working on this film as torture. Outspoken, star of the Gunslinger trilogy or Gunslinger movie. We don't know if it'll be a trilogy or not, coming out here soon. But we have seen him in the trailer for the new Thor, Ragnarok, with Dreadnoks, have we not? Mm-hmm. Dreadlocks. Yep. Dreadnoks are a G.I. Joe villain, if I recall correctly.
Yes, yeah.
There's Curse and his tusks. He looks like something out of Skyrim. What game is
it? Does sound like this wasn't the most fun movie to shoot, according to Idris Elba anyway. Part of me wonders if he might have been trying to get out of his contract because it seems
Jon Stewart.
It seems like his name, Idris Elba's name, gets rumored, like you said, for Jon Stewart, for every major African American superhero that comes up. So, is it possible he was trying to get out of his contract? I don't know.
Hard to say, really. I know he went on to play a very minor role in one scene in Age of Ultron, and as Todd said, has been seen in trailers for Thor Ragnarok, so it would seem that whatever the issue was previously, he has worked through it. Has not has not had negative things to say about Marvel since the release of this film. Really, has kind of seems to be on better terms with them. So I don't know. Quite frankly, it's not for me to say. I suppose is the short way of arriving at that.
Right, and I really enjoy the sense of dread here, the sense of doom. You get the idea that these Asgardian soldiers know that they're about to be slaughtered. You know, they look very cautious, they look very frightened, and you get the idea that they're about to be taken out, and they are.
And I will say, I do dig the overall looks of the Dark Elves in their war armor with the masks that all lend them to have these similar faces that almost make them seem like Legion rather than individuals. It's an interesting take on the Dark Elves, and I love these little,
grenades.
Quantum field dimension grenade things.
Yeah.
These are cool concepts. Original concepts, to my knowledge, because the Dark Elves were kind of always presented as a little bit more primitive in their tactics in the comics, but cool concepts nonetheless.
I don't know. I mean, the laser rifles and spaceships, it is not historically congruous with the Dark Elves that you'd see in the comics, but they look cool in HD.
Or any race of people from any of the Thor of the realms.
Yeah,
does
this not seem like something that the villains in Guardians of the Galaxy might do?
Yeah.
Instead of in a Thor movie?
It seems clear to me that they really wanted to lean into that idea of Asgard not as a realm, but as a... he makes reference to the fact in the first movie that science and magic, he comes from a place where they're one and the same, and so I think they're trying to portray these realms as perhaps different worlds within a far-off galaxy or something, giving it a more cosmic feel than a classic Norse mythological feel, which I think is a little bit of a mistake, honestly.
Right, because it comes off they come off technological in nature, the Dark Elves here. This is, again, a great scene here. Frigga is going to make a stand against Malekith, and
there are some heavy rape overtones in this scene, by the way.
She's not worth it, Frigga.
No, just let him have her.
Well, she has the ether, Greg. That's the issue. It's not so much Natalie Portman; it's the ether within her.
Anybody else hear Duel of Fates in their head right now?
No.
Da 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 da.
I know what Duel of Fates is.
Oh, that's the climactic lightsaber scene from Phantom Menace.
I did not know that.
It felt like, that's like the one original piece of music that John Williams did for the prequel trilogy that stands out. And so, but Malekith, she's a hologram. What's going on?
Because Freya has used her powers to protect Natalie Portman and send her elsewhere.
Yeah. But
and we got
later days,
and we understood that, Nick.
So
curse. Nice. So here, what has happened is Thor has come in and has used Mjolnir to electrocute the side of Malekith's face, because in the comics, Malekith always has had traditionally something of a two-face look, but it's perfect.
Two-face,
down the
half
middle,
and half.
With a blue face and half a black face, but not the offensive kind of black face. And here, rather than giving him just a plain black face, they went with a scarred take on it.
Scarred visage, if you will.
Rather, as opposed to naturally done that way.
So, Frigga has been slain, unfortunately, in a sad moment. But really, where this gets sad is when you see the reaction of Thor, Odin, and Loki to this unfortunate death of Frigga. Again, a little bit of a waste of a character, in my opinion.
This is the first instance in these films of Odin showing emotional vulnerability. And it's,
agreed.
It's cool to see, because sometimes, even in the comics, they portray him as ultimately largely uncaring about his own wife. So I actually kind of dig this.
Aloof.
Oh, this is such a great funeral scene.
Very Snow White looking, kind of.
Todd, you may get this reference. This funeral scene reminded me of the funeral scene from First Night. Have you seen that movie, the King Arthur movie with Sean Connery and?
I've seen many of the Sean Connery films, but I chose not to watch that film because it was a bastardized retelling of the King Arthur legend. where adultery was glamorized instead of made to look like it was something of a moral failing. No, I haven't seen First Night. I know of it, but this is a beautiful thing, beautiful funeral scene or Viking funeral. No,
and this is a great visual effect here, because you're seeing all these ships for all the people who were slain during the battle going over this waterfall, but the waterfall leads into nothing. It leads into the space.
It's supposed to go to Valhalla, isn't it?
This is actually how Kyrie Irving thinks our world works.
See, here their spirit is traveling up to Valhalla, but the ship itself falls off into the nothingness.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Nick burying my Kyrie Irving joke.
I'm sorry, I was answering Todd's question for God's sake.
I got it.
Son of a bitch.
Kyrie
Irving thinks the world is flat, Jennifer.
Yes, let's keep that off the list. The really good funeral scene, reminiscent of stuff like First Night that I mentioned, like many other great movies, The Viking Funeral,
and of Return of the Jedi.
Jedi. So
Loki's still in a cell. He was in a cell in much of the first Avengers film, was he not?
Yeah, in the cell on the helicarrier, which has set up some of the best scenes in that film.
And on some occasions,
says cell dweller.
Yes, he's been known to have to bring in some certain elements of rage, which can create hell in a cell at times. So,
fuck this furniture.
Yeah, he's had enough of it. Damn it, he's sick of it. Sick of all of it.
Skarsgård, we have Skarsgård
lashing out angrily.
Look at my shoe. Look at my black shoe. It's like Malekith's face. Half black shoe, half white shoe.
It's like Roddy Piper at SummerSlam 90 or whatever.
Yes.
WrestleMania 6, whatever it was.
Yeah. One of the agents wasn't there doing their job when they said it's fat batters. Oh, it'll be fine, Rod. It'll be okay.
I say to Vin, it will be okay.
I have 2 pencils. I have a pen. I have a pineapple. Look, this is I'm not reading the captions because I'm trying to watch the film on my phone.
Stan.
So I can't quite. Oh, he's in an insane asylum.
Can I have my shoe back?
This reminds me of when I created Doctor Strange.
I thought if he had the same first letter on his first and last name, I'd be able to make him relatable to the general public.
And she's sad. She's in her cell. She's got the Aether inside her. Is that what we were talking about?
Yeah, she still has kind of the ether.
So, and see, okay, this is actually something I don't like in the visuals. I do not like I've changed my mind from the beginning of the movie. I don't like these ether effects.
I think what you were saying is you liked the ether when it was actually the ether and not the visions that it is giving her.
Right, the visions are.
And even I would say I don't mind the visions so much as I do just the physical manifestation of the ether itself inside the visions. When they do that little swirl thing.
It looks so like
the red skies
90s.
or whatever is whatever, but like the actual CGI representation of the ether.
Yeah, it looks late 90s to me.
I did like her with the brief look of the black contacts inside her eyes. Mm-hmm. I liked that for just a second. It was like she almost had emotions and feeling in her face. And look, now we're looking at, there he is. He's in his cape again. We just had not Zach Braff, but the other Zach Levi. And his wig. Lots of wigs going on here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's true. That tends to be, in fairness though, that tends to be the case when you're dealing with movies set in these kinds of eras and whatnot. A lot of wigs and Shakespearean type dramas and whatnot. So, but some of them look better than others. And I have to say, I like Zach Levi, but like Nick said earlier, I don't really know that he brought anything extra or less than to the role than we saw in the first one. Just kind of forgettable, ultimately.
He's supposed to be, like I said in the last time we watched the first Thor, it's Errol Flynn. He's the true swashbuckler. Mm-hmm. Fandral. He's supposed to be more of and he's kind of flat here.
And something of a womanizer. Like, honestly, I'm not even saying this completely as a joke, although it is kind of funny. He's almost like the Ric Flair of the Warriors 3. Like, he's really supposed to be so bombastic and so charismatic and just so damn... I don't even know, Ric Flairian. I can't even think of what the actual adjective is.
Well, why hasn't he put Kat Dennings in his limousine at this point?
Yes, exactly.
Because what other women are there? There's Sif, who's like, she's hung up on Thor. If you're not Thor, you're not going to get it. But Kat Dennings is right there for the taking, guys.
Which begs the question.
I like me some Kat Dennings, too.
We do. I do, too. But that begs the question, you know, we have seen various forms of Asgardian technology throughout this film. What I need to know is, does the razor exist in Asgard, and thus, would Asgardian women pass the no hair, no flare rule?
Ooh, I don't know. Well, the question also exists of, do you think in the case of Frigga that Flair hit it first?
Oh, undoubtedly. I would have to think so.
So it's
without
possible
question.
Yeah.
that Ric Flair is Loki's real father?
Well, he would have to be the frost giant Laufey in that case.
Mm-hmm.
Or Emir in the comics, depending on which...
Well, if you do a DNA test, perhaps you can prove that wrong, though.
That's a good point.
I mean, we don't know.
Who is this news anchor? Is that Eric Roberts?
I didn't see it.
I missed it.
I'm sorry.
I missed it.
Oh. Naked Skarsgård.
Greg and I were looking into each other's eyes as we discussed no hair, no flare. It was very, certainly a unique situation.
Yes, I can only hope it was Eric Roberts, because Eric Roberts could build up a reputation as being a side supporting character in multiple
Batman Begins, right?
Yeah, or Dark Knight actually.
Dark Knight. He wasn't.
Yeah, he played the
What makes you think
the
I want
mobster.
to listen to you talk?
Sal Maroni.
Boss Maroni, if you will.
That's right, Boss Maroni. Yeah, that's how
Boss
they know
Maroni
him.
has plans.
Yep.
So we have a quiet scene here between Thor and Heimdall with his helmet off for the first time.
Yeah, showing guilt and remorse for what's happened. Blaming himself, undoubtedly, for the...
it's my fault. I let Curse through the cracks. I don't know. Was that what happened?
I think he was more talking about the fact, not because he saw Curse come through, just didn't know who he was, but the ships were able to pass through unseen through some means of dark elf magic. So he basically let an invading force into Asgard under his watch, which you would have to think would be one of the largest screw-ups in Heimdall's history.
Colossal.
Yeah, I mean, where do you
sad.
come back from? How do you come back from letting spaceships, vertical spaceships come through and kill the wife of your boss?
I mean, that's pretty bad, admittedly. I mean, that he was supposed to be one of the best people hired to be part of Odin's cabinet, and he's already let him down.
And so here we have a callback to the Avengers, where... So in the Avengers, there's another line where Loki makes reference to there being more than one way to travel between realms, and known to people who partake in the magical abilities. And so Thor here calls back to that line from Avengers, saying that there's only one person who knows of the secret passageways between the realms, and he knows where to find him. So,
and now we see the real Loki.
Yep.
And feet bleeding, disheveled, not regal or glorious at all, and Thor has come to deliver unto him the bad news about Frigga.
He's out shooting from Breakfast Club, I think.
The news to him has already
came,
delivered to him, and that's why we see him in the state that he is. That's what that
that's right.
little outburst of blowing the furniture back, and the implication here being,
Come, Mr. Bond.
He's
you derive as much pleasure from vengeance as I do.
To harm himself physically, since
Frigga died, basically.
Yeah.
Frigga
in this MCU, Freya in the more Norse mythological traditional pronunciation.
Which my summer book this year was Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman, and Freya is not necessarily Thor's mom in the tradition. So
exactly.
But we have a very sad Loki here. He's despondent. Was he hot for Freya? Is that what's up?
I think we kind of established that earlier. I think
there was an element of that, but also the element of, like, she was the only one who even bothered to show him kindness after he was returned to Asgard. The implication being that Thor was a daddy's boy and Loki was a mama's boy.
Loki indicates that Frigga was the only person in his life that ever really showed him love and compassion on any.
Wait,
real
there are
level.
two Thors going on here. There's one at the table and one walking with Loki, right?
Hmm?
Well, there was just a scene with Thor and the Warriors 3, and then a speed cut. Now, Loki is changing shape. He's Heimdall now, right? We have the best scene in the film about to happen, I recall.
Yeah. Oh, now Thor is Sif. Oh, that's pretty. I like that change, quite frankly.
Her boobs got bigger.
Here we go.
Very good. Now, here it comes. Amazing.
There it is.
Yep, amazing. This is great as Loki transforms into Captain America.
I can feel the righteousness surging. You want to have a rousing discussion about truth, honor, patriotism?
God bless America. Such a great scene and very unexpected in the theater. This got a huge pop to the point that when I first saw this movie, it got such a huge pop in the theater that I didn't hear the dialogue.
Yeah.
Everybody was just marking out over this unexpected and unadvertised guest appearance. So very, very good. If this happened in a movie that was coming out, let's say this year and was coming out, maybe it's coming out this weekend and early reviews were out, this would have been spoiled instantly.
Probably
but yet I
so,
feel
yeah.
like this wasn't spoiled at all. We would have been on Facebook and IGN would have had a still image of it and would have said, you won't guess or the story behind spoilers guest appearance in Thor Ragnarok. And
See,
it
Thor's
should be a
back at
still
the
image.
table.
Now, granted, I was here at an advanced screening of this one, so I did not have an opportunity to have it spoiled for me.
And I didn't. I have to say, I did not have it spoiled for me. I was really blown away by that surprise. Nice right hook from Jane Foster to Loki. He likes her now. He kind of likes it, quite frankly. Much like Earl Hebner when the divas would roll over
Yeah,
him.
Todd, they're cutting back and forth between them putting the plan together and then putting the plan into action. For some reason, I don't really know why.
Yeah, I don't know why either.
It's an odd choice, admittedly.
Yeah.
Oh, so is Heimdall
His
King
kid?
Arthur now?
What did you say?
I said
Go ahead.
Heimdall must be King Arthur now.
I think he is. He just pulled the sword from the stone.
Yes.
The mechanical stone.
That's how he has operated the Bifrost. So
Is there a
they just
Trifrost?
named that random character as Tyr from the comics.
Who's that?
TYR?
Yeah, they just in the subtitles that random character who popped up and said "My Lord" or something like that. If I'm remembering correctly, is Tyr not the brother of Odin? One of the brothers of Odin?
I don't think so. He's a Legion of Superheroes villain, if I recall correctly. So TYR, I don't recall in Marvel at all.
Okay.
There we go. Tyr was actually the elder brother of Thor. So it was Tyr, Balder, Thor, and Loki in the comics. Tyr apparently exists in this MCU, whereas Balder apparently does not. So, or at least
No.
there you are.
Balder exists in American Gods. Spoiler alert. But
Balder, I don't even know.
Nobody's read that yet.
Yeah, so I guess kind of getting into the meat of this movie here. Let's go down and talk about the cast. We've talked about several of these individuals here. Let's start with him. Let's go to Hemsworth. We haven't really talked about him much, and I feel like that's because we kind of know what we're getting out of Chris Hemsworth at this point. He's awesome. He is Thor to me. Did you guys think his performance in this one was any better or worse than in any of the other movies?
No,
To me,
I
it
think
feels about the same.
I think he's been very good to outstanding in all the films. Whether or not this film's material helps to highlight that or not, I think he is giving one of the better performances in the film, as he does every time out.
Yeah, your
He's
thoughts,
at the point where we don't think of him as Chris Hemsworth. We think of him as Thor. If he's on screen, he's Thor. At this scene here with there goes Volstagg. He's got the short sleeves, more of the classic 70s and 60s Thor costume going on, which is cool. But you see him, he's Thor. You don't even think of him as being an actor from Earth Prime or whatever at this point. He is Thor. He assumes the role and just owns it. And whether it's more interesting or less interesting, I think we just kind of draw a straight line between the films at this point. He's Thor.
Yeah. And this also is one of my favorite parts of this movie. I love it should be noticed by now in my reviews of these movies, I love the buddy cop genre, and so I love Thor and Loki as sort of mismatched, reluctant partners who are out on a mission that's mutually beneficial, but yet neither trusts the other. So I really enjoy all this stuff as they're escaping from Asgard and going on their mission of vengeance. We've talked about Hiddleston earlier. We've talked about Jane Foster. We've talked about a little bit about Odin. Anthony Hopkins' turn as Odin. What are some of the standout performances in this film for you guys, and what are some of the performances that fell a little flat for you?
Vastly underutilized as always, but Jamie Alexander is a fantastic Lady Sif in my opinion. Probably, if I had to pick one character that the films have not done enough service towards, it would be Lady Sif. I think she's great in these films. You get the first hints of the love triangle here early in the film. Odin kind of mentions it directly, so that would be my pick. And in terms of performances that fall flat, I mean, we mentioned Eccleston and we mentioned Portman, and those are kind of the two that pop up for me. So nothing really to add in that regard.
Todd, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, I will not disagree with any of that because I think part of our podcasts tend to be we agree with each other. that ends up happening. But yeah, you're absolutely correct in that if the movie had better performances or better directed performances from Portman and Eccleston, there we go, one of those stuns, we would have had a different film.
And see, my issue with Eccleston really is more the script. I think the script just kind of fails that character entirely. The characterization is off on the page as opposed to, I don't really know what else.
The direction as well.
Right, but even with the material he was given, I think Eccleston would have been hamstrung. It could have been better, no doubt, but it still wouldn't have been what it needed to be, honestly.
We don't have Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face here, but we do have kind of a one-dimensional flat villain that is adequate for if you need a adversary, but and here we have Zach Levi swinging around. That hair just looks so fake, but
and you know I have to say I never noticed this on my first few watches of this movie, but I got to be honest, I think I kind of prefer the other Fandral now that I see him in action. Because Zachary
Levi, takes me out of it too much.
He doesn't look charming or swashbuckling when he does that scene that's supposed to come off super cool, where he flies out of the ship and swings down. He just looked really lame and didn't look like he was all that charismatic, I guess you would say. He didn't have that kind of bombastic delivery, if you will, where you'd think, oh, this guy's a cocky prick. He's going to do great. Didn't come off that way at all to me.
No, he's supposed to be Robin Hood, and he's not coming off that at all. There's Curse again, speaking the Elven language, and I mean that's a good design for Curse, but I think character had maybe a little bit different look in the comics, if I recall correctly. I think again, you flesh out the Sif character and the Triangle maybe a little bit more. You have a different film. Still much better than the average action film you're going to see. Still a worthy part of the MCU, but not my favorite, I guess is how I'm going to say this film is.
Yeah. The direction from Alan Taylor, do you feel that this film would have been better with Kenneth Branagh behind the camera, or would it have pretty much had the same issues regardless?
Not necessarily. I think the problem is maybe more in script and plot than it is in direction. I guess I could see maybe more weight given to the Asgardian stuff than to the Midgardian stuff, if that's a term. Mm-hmm. But the action stuff is fine. I think it's just a matter of, well, they got Malekith that wrong. And, I mean, nobody's going to ever acknowledge that they got Jane Foster wrong, but they got Jane Foster wrong. They just don't have a connection. She and Thor don't connect on any level for the average viewer, myself, you. And so, but so much of it is right. It's just very disappointing. I wish you would have more of this stuff with Thor and Loki fighting and it's just the tension, the drama that you're going to have, the consequences and the stakes. I wish there was more of that as a rule throughout everything.
This stuff is great. I mean, just this line from Thor, "I wish I could trust you." That's awesome. We've talked a lot about the negatives of this movie, but the positives for me are the character dynamics between the Asgardians, in particular Thor, Loki. They just dominate the movie to me. I'm like, oh, now we cut back to Earth, and I'm like, damn it, I don't care. I don't want to go back to Earth. I just want to stick with Thor and Loki.
It is beautiful. I think we're noticing maybe more. Every scene just there's not much you could improve on as far as the way it looks.
Yeah.
So, and that's a director thing.
Yeah,
but
the visuals are stunning. I mean, they for the most part. I mean, there are a couple little things here and there, like we talked about with the ether transformation scenes and whatnot. But overall, visually, this is a stunning movie, and maybe even an improvement in that regard from the first one in terms of, which also looked good. But there are some really spectacular visuals in this movie, as there were before. But in this case, the action feels a little maybe more ramped up. Even though I don't think it's great action, it's good action.
Who is this guy? Not Skarsgård, but who's the
the other guy? I don't know, Nick.
They made reference to it earlier in the film that apparently she had, without Jane's knowledge or approval, hired herself an intern. So this is Darcy's intern that she bosses around throughout the film and later shares a romantic connection with.
Oh my!
Big man. I don't see anything there. I know.
Good for him.
Lucky guy. He hit the lottery, so to speak. Because Anyway, but
it's mainly just used to set up the Darcy on a power trip jokes that you can take or leave in this one.
Yeah, and I know Nick and one of the ways that Nick and I diverge on these movies. I am not a huge fan of the professor character. I find him funny in this one, but I don't really. He doesn't interest me very much.
The statement there implies that I'm like overly in love with him, but I just don't.
No.
He bugs you, and he doesn't bug me. He's just kind of. He's okay.
I think it's mainly because I love all the other stuff so much, like the Thor, Loki, Odin, all those good folks. Are so entertaining.
I like him in Thor much more than in Avengers. Is that weird? Is that...
Well, Avengers he spends the
like
majority of the film brainwashed. He's kind of just standing there, so I would admit, Yeah.
Well, let's kind of put a little bow on this, I guess. It feels like we've talked about everything we could possibly talk about with this film. Any other points you wanted to add before we get to our final thoughts, Nick?
Not that I can think of, no. I mean, it's just one of these that... admittedly, it's just I love this for its fan service. That's the reason I like it as much as I do, and while acknowledging that, it definitely has a lot of warts. But it's one that every time I pop on, I ultimately enjoy because of getting to see some of these concepts brought to life in ways that I never imagined they might be.
Todd, any final thoughts before we get to our kind of overall recommendation and rankings and all that good stuff?
Wasted potential. I think overall it just seems like it's a speed bump on the way to, say, even the Infinity War, where you have the whole point of the movie is to get the Infinity Stone out and eventually into the Gauntlet. I mean, I wish the stakes felt heavier, even though Freya died, and I guess we haven't talked about the end of the film. What happens to Odin after this at the end? With that to me, I mean, the rest of this is kind of like a by the numbers battle with the Dark Elves on Earth, right? Oh, Loki just stabbed Thor. Mm-hmm. Why? Why did he do that?
They're putting on a show.
Put on a show to mislead the Dark Elves and lure them into a false sense of security, including what we're about to get is an homage to one of the classic Simonson elements of Thor here in just a moment, even though it all...
The Thor frog or Beta Ray Bill? What?
Neither of those. Handless Thor.
Ah. There he is. Yeah. Yeah, it just went down Bespin. He lost Mjolnir.
And I also I loved getting to briefly feel like Loki had made a heroic sacrifice here. It really felt like a nice redemptive moment for his character, and I enjoyed that feeling of rooting for Loki and feeling bad for him. But as we learn at the end of the movie, as all things are with Loki, it's a charade. Mm-hmm. And Nick or Todd, one of you can set up how this movie ends and tell us where we are at in the Thor universe.
I got to say, I like this look from Malekith much better than anything else. I wish he had this much earlier. I like the Two-Face aspect. It looks good.
Yeah, you really need it to portray that character and help set him up as being visually distinct from the other Dark Elves. But anyway, so as Greg was alluding to, the film actually ends with a shot of what is seemingly Odin on his throne, talking about how they're going to rebuild and move forward as the people there in Asgard. And as everyone walks away, Loki drops his facade. And it is revealed that Loki has actually taken the throne of Asgard, but is using his magical powers to fool everyone into believing that he is Odin. And so the true fate of Odin and his whereabouts are left unknown at the end of this one.
And this is 2014?
Right.
I mean, we don't see Thor even again. We don't see Thor in Civil War.
But we do see him in Age of Ultron.
We see him in Age of Ultron where he goes after Hulk, if I recall correctly. And then we see him at the end of Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which hopefully they actually follow up on and doesn't end up being one of those things they filmed and then forgot about, kind of like the end of Iron Man 3.
Agreed.
But yeah, so with all that being said, it feels like, and this is actually 2013, actually, not 14 that this came out.
November 13th.
Yeah, so reaching the end of the line here, it's to that point
where
we talked
4 years
Yep.
before the sequel or the threequel to this. So that's kind of a long time. I mean, we only had 2 years between Iron Man 1, 2, and 3, each of those films, correct? So 4 years between Thor films is kind of a bit.
It is. That's a good point. But let's, as we do at the end of every Hard Travelers for Hire episode, we Nick and I reveal our revised rankings of the movies and insert the new movie in, and we also give Todd or whoever our guest is at a given time a chance to reveal their rankings, and then we have something else at the end that we're going to do where we compare our rankings to the critical rankings of these films. So
critical and fan rankings
combined. So Todd, we want to give him the list of movies to this point and have him rank.
I get to go first. Well, tell me if I miss any.
Okay,
there we go. All right. At this point, Avengers is first.
Okay.
Iron Man second.
Okay.
Captain America: The First Avenger is third.
Okay.
Iron Man 2 is fourth. No, I'm sorry. Iron Man 3 is fourth.
Okay.
How many total movies? 7?
8.
This is 8.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I will put Thor: The Dark World. Thor's: The Dark World is number 5. Iron Man 3 is 6.
No, you mean 2.
2 or 3?
Did I rank 3 higher than 2?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 is 6th. Did I rank the Incredible Hulk?
You have not.
Incredible Hulk is 7th. And
that leaves Thor.
That leaves the original Thor.
No, shoot. Flip. Thor is just a notch higher than this. So let me put Thor at 6.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Thor at 6, yep.
Thor 2 at 7.
Okay.
Hulk at 7. Hulk at 8.
That's it.
And that's it.
All right.
Unless you want to revise.
Do you want to run through that again?
Yeah, I'm on my third beer. So
okay. And in fairness, we did put him on the spot.
So. Right, we did. Yeah, I was asking if he wants to.
Yeah.
Avengers.
Okay.
Iron Man.
Yes.
Yep.
Captain America.
Okay.
Iron Man 3.
Okay.
Thor 1.
Okay.
Thor 2.
Okay.
I changed that.
Okay.
Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
Iron Man 2.
Okay.
Is that 8?
That's
8.
Yep.
Iron Man 2 at the bottom. Interesting.
I hate Iron Man 2. I don't know what it is.
On the scale of Marvel movies, right?
Relative to the other 7 films up to this point, and even after like 17 films at this point, I think Iron Man 2 is still my least favorite film, but it's still a watchable and okay film at this point. Oh, Loki's dying here. What's going on?
He's passing away from his heroic sacrifice.
Yes, he has sacrificed himself to try and turn on the Dark Elves to prevent their further assault.
I think he just said shit.
Although, as it turns out, we learned this was also all a mirage.
All a mirage.
And perhaps this entire sequence of events was part of Loki's plot to gain power. But
it's like, who knows?
Who knows? Nick, you want to go next?
If you want me to, yeah, sure. I'll go. So we're going 1 to 8. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I will go Avengers at 1, Iron Man at 2, Thor at 3, Captain America: The First Avenger at 4. I will go Iron Man 2 at 5, Thor: The Dark World at 6, The Incredible Hulk at 7, and Iron Man 3 at 8.
All right. I am going to go The Avengers at 1, Iron Man 2 at 2, Iron Man 3 at 3.
For God's sake.
Iron Man at 4. Captain America: The First Avenger at 5. Thor at 6. Thor: The Dark World at 7. And The Incredible Hulk at 8.
Todd with a "for God's sakes" in the middle. Oh, God. Here we go.
I'm not singing a song. I had to grab my ukulele just because I was so overwhelmed by Greg's overstatement of Iron Man 2.
Hey, I had it in only a couple slots higher than Nick did.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. All right, so that was really? You like Iron Man 2 that much, Greg?
Nick can attest to this. We rewatched it. And I go back and forth on 3 and 2. I honestly do. Like, I could put 3 over 2 on a given day, and I probably will end up revising that by the time we get to the end of our journey. But when we rewatched let me rephrase that. When we rewatched whatever the hell the damn name of the movie is, again, it probably gained the most of all the movies that we've watched so far by a rewatch. It's a movie that I liked always, but I think on the rewatch I liked it a lot more than I did before.
I would agree. I liked the aspects of it that I had always liked more on this rewatch, but I still think that bit where he's trying to discover the new element in the movie just like brings the proceedings to a screeching halt, and it's tough. It's a tough sit. Whenever I do my occasional MCU marathons, that's the point where I kind of nod off for a moment and go, "This is wholly uninteresting."
And see, that's how I feel about this movie.
I understand.
For everything that takes place on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Hammer gets better and better each time I watch it, and the rest of the film gets worse and worse, including War Machine, and it's just all the happy and pepper stuff. Iron Man 2 is a bad film for me, relative to Marvel's output at this point. Better than the average film, but the bottom of the barrel. It's almost a tie between Iron Man 2 and Incredible Hulk, which is adequate but not great. Not even. It's okay.
I have my issues with this film, but wait until we get to Doctor Strange in the year 2050. And,
he just put his hammer on the coat rack. That's a worthy coat rack, I must say.
Apparently so, yes. That's a coat rack that is reinforced with the nth metal, I believe.
No, that's DC.
Oh.
Skarsgård is in his tighty whities.
Who can blame him when he's surrounded by Thor?
And Kat Dennings.
And to a lesser extent, the other one.
Interns.
So, Nick, let's get to our looking at the how the critics and fans felt about Thor: The Dark World, according to.
Do you want me to go 8 to 1 or 1 to 8?
We want to just reveal the scores of this one and
Just
see how it ranks.
IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes? What
we're going off is a combination of the Rotten Tomatoes critical score, the Rotten Tomatoes fan score, and the Metacritic score.
And we just want to give the total combined and then just rank them
for this film. I mean,
I never met a critic I didn't hate.
I was just going to give the rankings unless you want me to give the detailed scores, Greg. It's up to you.
Let's give the detailed scores, just the total, not just the total score, along with the ranking.
For every one of them?
No, just for this one. We'll give the total score for this one.
Okay, so basically, all three of these rankings are on a scale of 1 to 100. So out of a possible 300 points, this one scores 196 to be the bottom film in the MCU to this point. So from 8 to 1, going upwards, Thor: The Dark World, according to this composite, is at 8. The Incredible Hulk is at 7. Iron Man 2 is at 6. Thor is at 5. Iron Man 3 is at 4. Captain America: The First Avenger at 3. The Avengers at 2. And Iron Man at 1. So, there you are.
Yeah, I have no real issues with those rankings.
I think the bottom 3 are the bottom 3, but Nick doesn't.
Greg doesn't.
Nick doesn't either.
Greg doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, I have... Yeah, swap Iron Man 2 for Iron Man 3, and that's pretty much my bottom 3.
But, and I think I have Incredible Hulk and Dark World also as my bottom 2. So
I have them in the bottom 3. So.
It's, pretty relatively matched up, more than I figured it would. Of course, our rankings all change in the top.
Right.
But it's, except for the number 1 movie, is unanimous at this point, I think, for everyone we've had on.
Except for the critics. And originally, uniquely, they maintain
the
Iron Man over the
still
Avengers.
With Iron Man, yep. But as you know, for critics, the Avengers wasn't as much of an event as it was for us. But nevertheless, Todd, thank you so much for joining us on this occasion to talk about Thor: The Dark World. We will be sure to have you on again in the future on our regular show and also on Hard Travelers for Hire.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Sorry, that's from Moana, if you've ever seen that film.
I haven't. I want to. It's got...
Moana's a good film.
It's got the jabroni-beating, pie-eating, trailblazing, eyebrow-raising, foot on the gas, always looking to whoop some ass, People's Champ The Rock in it.
Or Dwayne Johnson.
Rock. Dwayne Johnson. Look at this. They're tearing through London at this point. So the vertical ships are like fucking things up in London proper, it looks like.
Isn't it amazing how the English countryside looks in no way like Southern California?
Did they film this in Atlanta? Like they film everything else?
Everything is filmed in Atlanta.
I think they actually filmed this one in London. This was before the establishment of Marvel's kind of home base at Pinewood Studios outside of Atlanta.
The only thing not filmed in Atlanta is the show Atlanta.
Which is also filmed in Atlanta.
Donald Glover. If you look, that's cool. It's kind of sliding down there.
Yeah.
I do like I said, London, wherever you are, you can see St. Paul's Cathedral, and they don't include St. Paul's Cathedral in nearly enough shots since the beginning of the film.
Do you know what more movies need? Slow motion walking.
Slow motion Eccleston walking.
There you go. Well, Todd, thanks for joining us, my friend. Thanks to all of you for listening. Let us know through social media, through the Place to Be Nation Facebook, Place to Be Nation Comics Facebook page, also on the Discuss feature on our placetobenation.com. Todd, where can people find you on social media, and what do you have coming down the pipe, so to speak?
What do I have? This is kind of like ends this month of me being on every single show on Place to Be Nation Pop. I do have a show coming up here in the beginning of August, maybe within 2 weeks, with Tim Capel, where we'll do part 6 of our look at the Claremont Byrne Dark Phoenix saga / run of Uncanny X-Men. But otherwise, just check out my show, Conversation Comics, where I have all those episodes, and we'll be doing some pod blasts here on Place to Be Nation Pop as we go. But I'm always around. I'm always helping everybody with their shows. And if you're listening to this show and you don't check out the mothership, or at least the network that we are derived from, the placetobenation.com, we have daily updates, daily live chats, looks at the greatest WWE wrestler ever project, and podcasts and podcasts involved with that. We've just got so much content for you, and it's all free. We just ask that you click on our website's portal to Amazon on the right-hand side and buy the things that you were going to buy on Amazon without spending any extra money. Just click on that link and then buy the whatever gas station dick pills you were going to buy from that portal, because apparently you may do that.
You can, yeah.
Or so I've heard.
You can buy a lot of things on Amazon.com.
Can't buy a Thor logo, but you can buy what is it called? Cobra 6 or whatever they sell.
Horny goat weed, motherfucker.
Well, and as always, if you would like to make any monetary donations to any of us, you can privately message us through Twitter. I am at gphillips8652. He is at Nick Duke 87. He is at Todd Weber Guitar. And you can send us any monetary rewards or donations you'd like, or if there's something you'd like us to review that we haven't done, that we don't have a copy of, if you'd like to send us a copy of it or something, feel free to do that, and we will get on that. As it stands, we're going to hit the break, and when we come back, we've got reading, watching, and the rundown.
Rundown. Very nice. Do.
Hard-Traveling
Listen,
Fanboys.
What is we have the comic book theater podcast coming up. What's the release date on this? This is the first Friday or first weekend in August that this show is coming out. So in about 2 weeks from now, we have our comic book theater dropping. Is that correct? Or is it the last week?
It's supposed to be scheduled for the last week in August, yes.
3 weeks from the release of this show.
The show that will change the fate and the course of Place to Be Nation Pop forever.
Technically, Todd, our original release schedule was based on Thursday releases, so I believe, if I am not mistaken, that comic book theater is, of course, set for August 31st, the very last day in August. So right there around Labor Day weekend, people will be able to pick that up. And what better way to, when you're sitting around spending time with the family, having a good old-fashioned American holiday than to listen to tales of gas station dick pills and Four Locos and, people looking up and shouting, "Save us, JR," and them looking down, him looking down. And
we'll say,
"Ma."
There it is.
Ma. Yeah, they're fighter jets. Oh, there's Hogan. All of a sudden, Hogan's freaking...
Hogan!
All of
Sorry. In any event, we're gonna hit the break, and when we come back, we're gonna have even more obscure wrestling references for you. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which, of course, includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com, and we offer those to you on 3 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the original Place to Be podcast, as well as Main Event, Lucha Afterground, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows, as well as the Our Vantage Point podcast and Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver quick-hit pod blasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Psychology is Dead, Puro Potpourri, Stacy and Elliot's Bogus Journey, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Letters from Center Stage, Space City, and NWA Classics On Demand Adventure, Through the Years, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Kayfabe, and much more. And on our popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, Rank and File, PTB and Dadcast, Go Home in a Box, NBA Team, and Lucha Undead, as well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans with the Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversation, Geek and Sassy, and Imaginary Stories podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to all of our feeds on iTunes. And while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available on PlacementNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlacementNation.com/Amazon when shopping online, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, TheHistoryOfWrestling.com, and Scott Keats' Blog of Doom. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlacementNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Coming soon from the creative minds of the Place to Be Nation Pop Network. The audio adaptation that no one was asking for, but everyone deserved. Place to Be Nation Pop Comic Book Theater presents Watchmen, an audio feast for your ears. Thrill to the exploits of the comedian.
These are demons. It's an intergalactic invasion into this space through people. They have sexual rituals, some of the most ancient Egyptian rituals where they believe they are possessed by entities, space aliens.
Silk Spectre.
Good. Hey, licking your finger, it's like licking a battery. It's all sort of...
Night Owl.
Yeah, well, you know how it goes. Sometimes I come down here and sit around a little bit, think about the times when we were making the towns, doing the drugs, fucking the rats.
Dr. Manhattan.
Clearly you don't really care about what stimulates me.
Ozymandias.
Puta, the Soviets, Vietnam, anyone? Mila Jovovich?
And Rorschach.
But what it doesn't change is the fact, and this is something we can all agree on, that all of the whores and politicians will look up and they'll shout, "Save us, JR," and I'll look down and I'll whisper, "Mom."
You won't believe your ears. You won't believe the dark places your imagination will take you. Featuring cameos from some of your PTBN favorites.
Baby, that's quite a drop, I said.
Oh, they're just paying me to handle monsters from outer space? No.
Maybe it was a couple of guys and they overpowered him.
He cometh up and swerve, cut down like a flower.
Fly me to the moon, let me fuck amongst my stars. Oh, I guess Dr. Osterman finally arrived.
Okay, number one, big blue dick. You don't bring it up. It's big, it's there, it's wagging.
It's Watchmen, the greatest graphic novel of all time, as you've never heard it before. Transformed into the most self-referential collection of in-jokes on this or any other medium. Only from the Hard-Traveling Fanboys and Place to Be Nation Pop.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the closing stretch of this week's episode of the Hard-Traveling Fanboys. And we're going to get right into it, folks. We're going to get right into our weekly, yes, it is indeed weekly, look at the news and notes from throughout the comic book world. We're going to get right into...
Welcome to the rundown.
The rundown.
Where we talk some comic news. Welcome to the rundown. Where we talk about movies too.
Yes, and with all that being said, what a wonderful way to introduce our items for this week. We're going to start off with the DCEU Corner.
Woo!
Your favorite segment, Nick. Everyone's favorite segment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
why is it my favorite segment?
It's everyone's favorite segment. I don't know anyone whose favorite segment it's not.
Is it even officially a segment if it doesn't have a jingle?
DCU Corner.
Well, that's a good point. It's a sub-segment of a larger segment.
It is a sub-genre within our genre?
Within our genre. You know, I was talking to people at the airport yesterday, Nick, and everybody was coming up to me at the airport saying, Brain, that's what they call me at the airport. They said, when are we going to get more about the DCEU Corner? And I said, God, just wait. You just had it on the last episode. They said, we need more. We need daily updates on the DCEU. And I said, well, you're not going to get it, quite frankly.
DCEU Corner.
So
not from us, anyway. No, not from us.
That's how in demand all of this information is. And what we have right now is a report, from Newsarama.com that Warner Bros., they're the bros that are responsible for DC Comics and all the related films, are planning a Wonder Woman Oscar campaign for Best Picture and Best Director. According to the article, which you can find at aforementioned Newsarama.com, Warner Brothers is internally discussing a formidable, that's in quotes, by the way, according to the article,
Is Vince McMahon planning their Oscar campaign?
A formidable Oscar award campaign for Wonder Woman in the Best Picture and Best Director categories, according to Variety. The film, which is the highest-grossing movie directed by a woman ever, wow, that's very impressive, actually, in Patty Jenkins, has to date earned $781 million at the box office and has a 92% Rotten Tomatoes score with critics, 90% with fans. If nominated in either category, it would be the first superhero film to achieve either award. However, not the first comic book adaptation, because, Nick, as you know, your favorite comic book film of all, 1931's Skippy, was nominated for Best Picture, and director Norman Taurog won for Best Director at the 4th Annual Academy Awards, which I believe our illustrious manager, Todd Weber, may have attended.
Oh, wow. Scott, shots fired.
Kidding, Todd.
Shots fired.
I'm just kidding. That was a play off of our internal Facebook chat that we're having. But
wait a minute. Skippy.
Or Twitter, actually.
What the hell is Skippy?
Skippy was a comic book back
Forgotten
in the day.
today, in the 1920s and 30s, Skippy was a very popular newspaper comic strip about a boy who spent most of his time figuring out ways to get around the rules of his father and palling around with his friends. And this won Best Picture?
Evidently. Apparently the people at the 4th Academy Awards were not quite as uppity as the people at the 104th or whatever the hell we're at now. So
the 1931 comedy film Skippy was based on the comic strip, starring Jackie Cooper.
Well, there you have it. So we've already established that Skippy has set the bar. Can Wonder Woman reach Skippy's bar?
Well, he's a small child, so hopefully she will be able to reach his bar. Although that would be highly inappropriate, based on the laws of whatever country or municipality or county you live in.
Does the movie Skippy set the bar, or is it the bar?
I've never seen the damn movie Skippy. Greg, I am concerned that for a potential future project we've discussed, we may now be forced to seek out a copy of the film Skippy.
Mm-hmm. I believe you're correct, Nick. I believe we could do an off the page on it, for instance.
Oh God, please no. What's the question? What are we talking about?
The question is, can Wonder Woman succeed in its campaign for Best Picture and or Best Director?
Can it succeed in actually winning either award? No.
Right.
No. Not in my opinion. I mean, I just don't see the Academy as constructed in 2018, which will be by the time those awards roll around, honoring a film such as Wonder Woman, especially a film with a third act such as Wonder Woman, which while you and I enjoy it, that was one of the few things about the film that pretty much a lot of the critics knocked, is that it was very generic and things of that sort. And it's just, we still live in an era, Greg, where there is hesitance on the part of many critics to embrace the superhero genre.
Yes, I tend to agree with you. I think that it's the most beloved, I believe, of the as far as the actual, when you read reviews of these movies, it's the one that is kind of the most beloved of all the trend. It's trending upward among all the movies right now. Even though I think Logan was, in my opinion, the best.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Wonder Woman is trending in the right directions in critic circles.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you. I don't think it has any chance at Best Picture. I think let's just drop that because it's not going to happen. The Academy will not let it happen.
Now, I will say it stands a chance of a nomination, but you're talking about actually winning
yes.
the award. And I can definitely see the Academy after the backlash of a few years ago with the Oscars So White campaign seeking to improve their
diversity,
their diversity, and improve their perception of being practicers of equal opportunity gender politics, and I could definitely see it getting a nomination, but I just don't see it winning either of these awards. I actually think if they were going to put it up for anything, why are they not discussing a Best Actress campaign for Gal Gadot? That would be what I would be pushing over Best Picture or Best Director, honestly.
Yeah, I would certainly push for that over Best Picture. I think it can get nominated for Best Picture. Are they still doing the 10 nominees for Best Picture?
It's
a
complicated thing now where apparently my understanding of it is that each person is allowed to nominate up to 10, but is not required to nominate up to 10, and then it's like a percentage of points or something. So the actual Best Picture nominees each year now can vary. It is not a set number. It could be like 6 or 7 or 8, or it could be 10, or it could be as few as 5. I think is the way it works now.
I think it could get a nomination in either category potentially. I think there's a chance that Patty Jenkins could win for Best Director. I think there is an opportunity for that. I don't think either scenario is likely, however. But I think nomination for Best Picture and a nomination for Best Director are within the realm of possibility. I think Patty Jenkins did a pretty spectacular job with the movie. And she has a little bit of clout as well, a little bit of quote unquote real movie cred from her past. So I think she has an opportunity to get in there. But it's interesting nonetheless, and I wish them success. I think whatever movie pops the Hollywood cherry on the Academy Awards from the superhero genre is going to do certainly our community a favor. So hopefully they'll get it done. I'm like you, though. I'm not really seeing it happen. Moving on to The Batman, which is a project that has had quite a bit of moving and shaking around with it. As many may remember, when the film was first announced, I think it was first announced early last year after Batman versus Superman, Batman v Superman, whatever the hell you want to call it. Jeff Johns and Ben Affleck were working on this movie, the solo Batman movie, and they announced that Joe Manganiello had been cast to play Deathstroke, who would be presumably the main villain in the film. Well, a lot's changed since then, Nick, as the Johns and Affleck script has been trashed. Affleck has left the director's chair, and now we've got Matt Vaughn, who is working on a new script from scratch, a new screenwriter is working on it from scratch, and this film is going to be a noir detective approach to Batman. So it leaves a lot of questions, and one of the big questions is, what is the status of Joe Manganiello's Deathstroke? Well, he was asked, and quite frankly, it's not for Joe Manganiello to say. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, the True Blood alum, this is quoting directly from Newsrama, I am doing no paraphrasing here. The True Blood alum was cagey when asked about his role following Affleck's departure as director and the incoming director Matt Reeves' statement that they're not using the movie's original script, which included a role for Deathstroke. Quote, "I don't have any information on that," end quote, said Manganiello. Open quote once more. "Well, I do, but nothing that I can share. I know everything, but I can't say any of it," end quote. So the actor said he was shooting for a neutral tone in that response. ultimately, not much to say about this. Nobody knows. Again, it's really not for us or for him to say at this point.
Yeah. My primary question after listening to you talk about that is, was that your Joe Manganiello impression?
No, that was my way of inferring that, or implying rather, that there were brackets used in the statement. You see, they put brackets around it to indicate that he didn't actually say it, but this is what he meant by what he was saying.
Okay, it was just an odd voice. I had not.
No. It's my parenthetical voice. You'll hear it a lot.
That's your
if you hear me recapping news articles.
Greg, we've been doing the show for over a year now. I don't think I've ever heard that before. But anyway,
I've always had it since I was first born. In fact,
yes.
My first words were reading from a newspaper article.
Reading, in parenthetical voice apparently. But no,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of this. I mean, it kind of makes sense. They threw out the script, so by that logic, if you're starting the story from scratch and there's no guaranteed role for Deathstroke, why would Manganiello know anything about it at this point? It could be very well that Matt Reeves himself doesn't know. So I think this is pretty much a non-story, personally. I was never crazy about the Manganiello casting to begin with. I kind of just thought it was okay and just kind of took it as, I kind of trust Affleck because at the time, he was still directing the film. Kind of trusted him to make the right decision. And now, if it doesn't happen, I'm not really going to be up in arms about it either way.
Well,
no big deal either way.
As you know, Nick, I was never, not that I was against it 100%, but I've never been a huge fan of the idea of Deathstroke being a Batman villain. Or the primary Batman villain in a movie. There's so many that we haven't seen on screen yet, or at least on screen executed in an acceptable manner. So I won't shed any tears if Deathstroke's not in the movie. It'll be cool if he shows up, but I'm hoping that he's not the primary antagonist, if you will.
Antagonist, yeah, I understand.
So let's move on to the comic book page. And speaking of DC, we've got comic book news that will light some hearts on fire. Strong desire. Indeed. And there is no easy way out.
Oh, there's no shortcuts now.
Not for Brian Hitch, because writer-artist Brian Hitch has confirmed that he is leaving DC's Justice League in October. Justice League 31. 31, Nick. 31 issues of Justice League, for God's sake, is the planned end of his legacy arc.
Greg, not to interrupt, do you know who sang Hearts on Fire?
Hearts on Fire. Was that Survivor?
It was John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown.
And the Beaver Brown Band? Yes. Yes.
It makes me love it even more.
I thought they only had one hit. I thought their only hit was On the Dark Side. Oh, babe. John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. Yes. They were the voice behind, they were the band behind that awesome movie that I've forgotten the name of from the 80s about the singer that died in the 60s and, Eddie and the Cruisers. Yeah.
They were also the inspiration behind Jimmy Fallon's French Stewart impressions. Funny joke during that Celebrity Jeopardy sketch.
Yes. Yes. In the Beaver. What a great name for a band. Hearts on Fire.
There you
now,
are.
Survivor did There's No Easy Way Out, right?
Apparently, this was a guy. It was by It was by a guy by the name of Robert Tepper.
Well, never mind then. Now, you almost had a Hollywood Hulk Hogan slip up, but we're not going to go there right now.
What?
Brian, I'll tell you after the show. Brian Hitch has confirmed that he is leaving DC's Justice League title. So he launched Justice League of America in 2015 and then segued over to Justice League, and it just never got out of first gear in terms of storytelling, although the sales have remained relatively strong. Hitch says, tweaks and edits aside, Justice League is done. Thanks for all the support. As always, we can't do it without you. I have a half a dozen where is it? I have a half dozen covers to do for Justice League, Wonder Woman, and the Wildstorm. Then it's a full-speed nosedive into Hawkman with Jeff Lemire. Going to be fun. So it looks like he's transitioning from being a writer-artist on Justice League to being just an artist, along with Jeff Lemire on Hawkman, which, in my opinion, that's going to be that's Hawkman Found, a Dark Knight's Metal tie-in. I just saw that, so it's just a one-shot. It looks like.
One-shot, yes. That's the one-shot that Jeff Lemire has confirmed he is doing, and he has been teasing the announcement of a Hawkman ongoing, spinning out of that, but that has not been confirmed. But Hawkman Found, they're doing two different solo character one-shots for Dark Knight's Metal, Batman Lost and Hawkman Found. So.
The big question is, how is Hitch going to handle an alien invasion for an already alien character?
Well, then it'll be humans falling out of the sky, Greg.
Humans falling from the sky, but invading their own planet.
In all seriousness, glad to see that his Justice League run is coming to an end. I actually rather enjoyed his Justice League of America run. It was plagued by delays, however, as we knew it would be.
Oh, sure, yeah, no.
And, the primary draw there was the Brian Hitch art. I know you're kind of not as high on it as I am, but I still like the guy. I still think he does that style pretty well. Yeah, it was kind of repetitive in terms of the alien invasion angle, but it was just kind of cool getting to see him, draw some of the classic DC characters the way he has the Marvel characters that hold such a special place in my heart as, some of the more iconic depictions of those characters, in my mind anyway. Very influential on me during my time as a burgeoning comics fan. So it was cool to see him get to do that, and I'm excited that he's going to be transitioning back over into art. Something about him as just a writer never really clicked, and it's time for DC to really get their flagship book, Justice League, back on track. There's no excuse for not having a fantastic Justice League title when the movie rolls around in November.
Absolutely, and to be clear, I like Brian Hitch's art, but I don't think his DC work has been his best stuff to this point. I think his JLA was stronger, but his work on Justice League has not been. Was not.
Well, he primarily didn't draw Justice League, though. He drew Rebirth, I believe.
Yeah, the Rebirth issue,
and then didn't draw the rest of it. It was all.
And I wasn't impressed by the Rebirth issue and some of his art before that on JLA. But he's a great artist, no question about it. And I think he's even got some good ideas in writing, but it's just he wasn't able – Justice League wasn't the right fit for him. He wasn't able to capture a dynamic, energetic storyline that Justice League should have. Like, Justice League should never be boring. It's one of those books that some books you can have slow paces and kind of take your time with. Justice League's not one of them. You need to come out of the gates firing, and in my opinion, he didn't. But that being said, I'm very excited to see what he does next. He's a super talent, one of the best in the industry at what he does, and we'll see what his next step is. But speaking of comic books, and Nick, I am going to. I'm just going to turn this over.
No. I want to hear your thoughts.
No, I don't want to. Quite frankly, I'm ready for you to filibuster for about an hour and a half after this.
No filibuster it.
We're never going to hear the end of it, ladies and gentlemen.
No, Greg. Why don't you tell us about it? Tell us about it so I can sit back and sniff into the microphone.
Welcome to the Feinbaum Show. Call Paul. He'll make sense of it all. Oh, God. Oh, when Teen Titans, a book written by Ben Percy, who is also writing Green Arrow, is finally grabbing the low-hanging fruit that some of us out there have been asking for a long time based on their character personalities and their similar backgrounds. Well, we're getting ready for a story arc in which Emiko Queen, the younger sister of Oliver Queen, is going to attempt to join the Teen Titans, which are currently led by Damian Wayne, who may be ceding his leadership role to Starfire in the coming months, which makes sense. However, once Damian sees and experiences Emiko for the first time, he develops something of a crush on her, which Benjamin Percy refers to as Damian's first crush, a one-sided crush at that. So, Nick, you just you take over from here, and you have any thoughts on this subject?
Oh, not really. No thoughts. No thoughts, really. Other than to say, I think that's a hell of an idea. I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it's an idea worth exploring. I think I just wonder, Greg, if there had been someone who had suggested such an idea during a certain Place to Be Nation Pop event that was held in honor of a certain comic book writer and, well, presented by a hypothetical online unlimited subscription service from a certain comics company. It's just, if we were to go back and, take a look at the pitches from a few years back and see, who came up with such an idea? Who?
Good Lord.
Might have been a pretty decent idea. Fair idea. And whoever that was, Greg, I think has a fair mind for the business. For our industry. For our genre, if you will. But not for me to say, quite frankly.
Are you done?
Just say
it. And folks, that's just the tip of the iceberg. We're almost to TV season, only a few months away.
That's right. That was but a small taste, if and when it happens, Greg. There are two television related events. One which will cause me to have a response much like you just heard, and another that will just be sheer unending joy. One of those is an Arrow-related event, and the other is a Walking Dead-related event. But what those events are, I'll leave it up to you to determine.
Oh, good Lord. Moving on. That's good stuff. In all seriousness, that's great. I've been wanting to see Damian and Emiko interact for quite some time. I think it's a natural pairing. I think, hopefully, she'll start to warm up to him a little bit. It'll Jennifer Smith and I can get a new ship that we can add into the never-ending list of our ships.
Fine, Greg. You guys can come over here and join the ship right next to me. After all, I am the captain of the ship. You can be my first mate and my navigator.
I am your first mate, Nick.
That's true.
Always.
That's what I didn't choose the terms randomly, Greg. For God's sake.
Well, on to some sad news from the DC world. And that sad news, you guessed it, Frank Stallone. But in fact, Warner Brothers Animation, casting director and legend in the industry of animation, Andrea Romano has announced her retirement. Now, she's not exactly a household name. You may be asking yourself, if you're listening to the show, who is Andrea Romano and why should I, listener X, care about her? Well, let me tell you why you should care about Andrea Romano. Andrea Romano was the voice casting director, the person responsible for assigning the voices to the characters for the DC animated universe, the greatest comic book adaptation of them all, in my humble opinion. Everything from Batman, the animated series, all the way up through the new season of Young Justice, The Outsiders, that is coming up on the DC streaming service next year. She is the one responsible for Kevin Conroy as Batman, for Mark Hamill as the Joker, for all of these iconic voices that we know and love. You know, the entire cast of Justice League, Susan Eisenberg's Wonder Woman, Phil Mars, Jon Stewart, iconic characters like that. Of course, our favorite, I'm blanking on his name, Granny Goodness, Ed Asner as Granny Goodness.
Yes.
And, this was all from the mind of the wonderful Andrea Romano, and she's the one that has coaxed these performances from these people. Mark Hamill talks glowingly about what a great voice director she is, how she was able to take these established actors and bring them into new areas that they were unfamiliar with. And it really, really it is a blow to lose her after all these years. But she's put in 33 years in the animation business and, has forgotten more about it than any of us will ever know as far as voiceovers go. But as somebody who's always had a pretty strong interest in the voiceover industry, seeing her walk away is a pretty big deal. And I really hope that she writes a book at some point, if she hasn't already, that I don't know about the keys to voice acting and how she was able to get some of these dynamic performances that we all know and love.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think she gets quite enough credit, I think, from the casual fan. We all have this deep-seated love for the DC, especially the DC animated universe of the 1990s and early 2000s. The kind of what I refer to as the core three shows, those being Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, and, of course, Justice League / Justice League Unlimited. And as much credit as Bruce Timm and Paul Dini get for the success of those shows, and it's absolutely deserved, I think Andrea Romano deserves just as much credit. So influential, so iconic. We wish her, all the best in her retirement. I read that unfortunately it was due to a developing blindness, so hate that for her, but big thanks to her for all of her contributions, and has really shaped, our fandoms in ways that, I hope everybody at least can recognize and appreciate.
Right, and she played such a huge part in shaping the television presence of DC Comics. And it's that television presence that has taken on new life in the modern era in live action, thanks to the CW network, thanks to Greg Berlanti and Mark Guggenheim and that whole crew, Wendy Miracle, et cetera, et cetera. And they have recently announced the dates of the now annual DC TV crossover event that will span across Arrow, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl. And this year's crossover event will kick off on Monday, November 27th. This is the Monday after Thanksgiving, and it will have back-to-back episodes of Supergirl and Arrow, which is moving from its new Thursday night time slot, followed by the conclusion on November 28th with back-to-back episodes of The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. So essentially you're getting two 2-hour episodes back-to-back. Nick, your thoughts on this 4-part crossover event?
Well, I know it's going to make you extremely happy. I know you were one of the people who was a little upset by the way the Supergirl aspect of the crossover was presented last year. So it's probably reassuring to you to hear that this is going to be a true 4-episode crossover. Yep. And I kind of actually like the formatting of it. I like presenting it as two 2-hour blocks rather than doing an hour each night for 4 nights. You get it all in there together. You don't have to space it out so much. You can kind of, link the 2 episodes together more naturally with only pretty much just a commercial break in between, rather than having to spend a few minutes recapping or providing some sort of framing sequence that really makes it feel distinctly like an episode of whatever show it's supposed to be. I think this is a good move all around. I dig it.
I agree. I feel like this could be an appointment viewing. I know in my case, Raw and SmackDown are going to have to wait those nights. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a fun time, I think. I really enjoyed crossover last year, except for, as you mentioned, the Supergirl episode that barely had anything to do with it. But I really am looking forward to this. I'm excited to see what kind of story they go with. Last year they used Invasion, which is a classic DC company-wide crossover. Makes me wonder if they'll use another classic crossover event this year, maybe 0 Hour or Armageddon or there's so many of them. the much maligned Millennium. I mean, there's any number of options that they could go with. They could make for fun stories. So really looking forward to that. And hopefully it will become a thing, as the kids say. Well, with that being said, we have wrapped up the rundown. How about that? We knocked that out in record time, I think, Nick.
Yeah, especially considering the last 2 weeks have been nothing but news and notes from the comic book world. So it feels good to shrink it back down a little bit this week.
Nothing but news and notes. But with that being said, let's move on, as I've said already, with that being said a bunch of times, to our other recurring weekly segment that we call...
Yes. Oh, I feel like it's been a while. My God.
Oh, my. Yeah, we haven't really gotten many updates lately through the... Hang on.
I had forgotten that it was working.
Nick, the machine's stuck. Hold on.
Oh, no.
Ah, there it goes. There it goes. I'm getting the ticker. All right. Let's see what we have here. Let's see. Jack Link's beef jerky. That's not it. No. Sales of stocks up in the Mediterranean. Don't care about that. Ah! I found it, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Ho Ho Loon.
Mm-hmm.
Still played by World Wrestling Entertainment.
And consequently still in the WrestleMania 33 program.
And consequently from that, still appearing infrequently on the NXT television program on the WWE Network.
Oh, outstanding.
Folks, you heard it here. Again, we don't know who is sending us all these updates or their relationship to Mr. Loon, but we will continue to report them as we get them here at our Ho Ho Loon Update Center. Now, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, we're ready for a little segment where we like to talk about what we've been reading and what we've been watching. It's a segment we like to call...
Read down and watching. What you been reading and watching.
What you been reading and watching.
Reading and watching. So, Nick, what's your favorite between reading and watching, and why is it reading?
Because there's no watching really to be had right now. Hey, actually, have you watched anything?
Me? Let me think about that. Comic book related. Do parodies count? No, I'm just kidding. I haven't watched anything comic book related recently.
The only thing I can have on that front is I will say that just this week, Greg, actually, we're recording this on a day that is undetermined, and I will say that the day before this undetermined day, I actually took my 3-year-old daughter to see Wonder Woman on the big screen.
Oh, cool!
Yeah,
sensory. Did you go one of those sensory showings?
No, I had decided, way back when the movie was first being marketed, I was like, yeah, I'm going to take her at some point, and I'll wait until a couple weeks after the movie comes out. And then when I actually saw the movie, I was like, I don't know if it would hold her interest. It's a little graphic, not in terms of violence, just in terms of like it shows some of the effects of war and that kind of stuff. So I was kind of made up my mind not to take her to see it. And then a couple weeks ago, my wife and my mother-in-law took her to see, I believe, Despicable Me 3, and she saw the Wonder Woman poster and just like kept pointing at it and asking if she could go watch that and stuff. And so I finally made up in my mind to take her. And so I took her yesterday on what used to be Stimulus Tuesdays at the Carmike Theater, and now I don't know what they call it.
You mean what used to be called Stimulus Non-Determined Day?
That's true. Stimulus Non-Determined Day. It's no longer Stimulus Non-Determined Day. It's just like generic discount Non-Determined Day at the local AMC. So I took her to one of the smaller theaters in town. We went and saw it, and it was good. It was good to get to see it again for the second time. Enjoyed it all over again, and she seemed to the first part of the film, she was kind of not really paying attention. She was mostly just eating her candy and popcorn, and so she polishes off like a whole bag of Airheads, and by that point we're about like 5 minutes maybe away from the big no man's land sequence, and she's been quiet the whole time, but she finishes her Airheads, and then she starts getting restless, and she looks at me and just out loud in the middle of the theater goes, "I thought this was a Wonder Woman movie." And I was like, it is a Wonder Woman movie. Just wait a second. And then like once the actual like Wonder Woman in Wonder Woman attire stuff started happening, she seemed to have a really great time with it. Like yelling at the screen and just sitting forward in her seat and stuff. So that was cool to see.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Olivia seems to be a big burgeoning Wonder Woman fan. Based on she's got her Supergirl outfit, her Wonder Woman outfit, and has a good time with that. So that's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear that she enjoyed it.
Yeah, she did. Took a little while, but she enjoyed it once it was Wonder Woman doing Wonder Woman things.
Right, exactly. Other than that, I haven't been watching a thing. But what I have been doing, not much of either, is reading. But I know you've been doing a lot of reading.
Yeah, actually, I've been pretty much woefully behind, dating all the way back to the 4th of July. I took a vacation that week and then immediately followed it up with a second trip out of town. And so it was about a 10-day window where I practically didn't read comics. And it wound up, crossing over 2 separate new comic book days and put me 2 weeks behind. And I've just been perpetually behind ever since then. So this week I made a concerted effort to get back on track, and I wasn't able to pull it off. And I read somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20 books. And honestly, I'm not going to sit here and give you all my quick hits. I can't even really pick out like an even like top 3 or bottom 1 or anything like that. But I'll just give you a few that caught my eye. These are 5 books that just stuck out to me for whatever reason, and I'll run through those real quick. I've got Aquaman 26. This is part 2 of the Underworld storyline. The art from
Stip
John Sajic continues to just... It's already one of the most beautifully drawn books in comics, man. It's absolutely outstanding. I really dig the way this story is going, and I just hope they slow burn this one because I don't want this to come to a quick, neat, clean conclusion. I want this one to have long-lasting effects. I'm loving the hell out of this one.
I'm very much excited about catching up to that title because I saw the cover of that issue in a Satan room in the Duke compound when I was there this past weekend, and I was blown away by the cover. So dynamic.
That's awesome, but but now that you've said that, I'm surprised the cover is still intact here at the Duke compound and not soiled with certain substances. But that's neither here nor there. Moving on. Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps number 24 continues the Fracture storyline and is taking this title, just ratcheting up the tension a whole other notch. I've never really loved Soranik as part of the Sinestro Corps because I've always thought that it didn't really make sense. I thought that she would view them as too villainous. But what they've done here in this one is give her, in my view anyway, a believable reason to actually feel some sort of anger towards the Green Lanterns and make it reasonable that she might be so deeply entrenched in remaining a member of the Sinestro Corps after what happens over the last couple of issues. So I've loved this one as well. And Ethan Van Sciver on art never gets any better than that. The Mighty Thor number 23 continues to impress. I absolutely love the way this story is going. The Odinson is finally back and playing a major role. You have Jane Foster Thor running around doing stuff. But this one, for nothing else, makes my list for one line from the Enchantress that just sums up my thoughts on a certain former Thor from the 90s. At one point, she encounters in this issue the new War Thor, who is wielding the ultimate Mjolnir, and she says, "I have no time for second-rate Thors. To hell with you. Give Thunderstrike my regards." And I laughed out loud and did the Garner clap pump when that happened because fuck the Thunderstrike. Batman 27 provides, Greg, I can't believe I'm saying this, a legitimately great Kite Man story of all things.
That's what I've heard.
I have never in my life thought that Kite Man would be a compelling character. And yet,
hell yeah.
I would totally be into reading a Kite Man miniseries.
Hell yeah.
After reading this book. You have to read this, Greg. It's mind-blowing.
Kite Man, hell yeah.
I don't get it.
Isn't that what he says every time he appears? Kite Man, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had forgotten about that. Good call. In any event.
JR Headshake.
Sorry, I didn't pick that one up on you, much like you didn't pick up on my Make It Work a couple of weeks ago when you let me down, so we're even now. Finally, though, I want to give a special shout-out to a book that I know many people are not big fans of. And I would argue that a lot of people aren't big fans of it, despite not even having read it. They dismiss it on premise alone. That, of course, being Marvel's somewhat controversial Secret Empire. I have number 7 here at my house. I haven't had a chance to read it. I did read number 6, however, this week, and I will say this: 4 issues left to go, and maybe they botched the landing between now and then. But if the last 4 issues are anything close to what these first 6 issues have been, this for me will be an all-time top 5 Marvel event. It's been that good from a writing and artistic standpoint. I'm loving the hell out of it. Questionable premise aside.
Interesting. One of the complaints I've read from people online is that it is extremely convoluted in a Grant Morrisonian type of way. Have you not found that to be the case?
No. Like, what? I'm even curious how. It's a pretty straightforward story. It's,
well, multiple Captain Americas and held dimensions and all kinds of stuff going on.
Not exactly. I don't want to. So, multiple Captain Americas. There is an alternate reality that plays a very minor role, typically only used to open books and to open issues and end issues. But the bulk of the story very much takes place in our modern context, and I have a pretty good inkling of what is going on with this alternate dimension and this other version of Captain America that is floating around out there. Plus, again, just from an artistic standpoint, it's awesome. And outside of those framing sequences, though, Greg, the story itself is pretty straightforward. It's a political intrigue story with Captain America leading this new powerful group against 2 other splinter groups, and all of them are trying to obtain the pieces of the Cosmic Cube to set the world right, depending on what their definition of right may be.
Interesting. I have read 3 comic books over the last 2 weeks, which is not many because I drive an hour every day and I don't feel like reading when I get home. But each way, I mean. But I did have a chance to read 3 comic books over this span, in addition to trying to read the Longbow Hunters for our upcoming Long Book Hunters. And I will tier these books from bottom to top in terms of my enjoyment level. And at the bottom, I'm going to go with a book that I'm not even sure why I'm still pulling it, except that I want to wait to see what happens when a classic creative team is reunited. And that's Blue Beetle number 5. This obviously I'm way behind. This is not the newest issue or even close to it. This is by Keith Giffen and Scott Collins. I'm trying to wait for when J.M. DeMatteis joins the crew along with Giffen, but this wasn't very good. This was maybe a slight step up from what came in the last issue before this, but I'm just not that interested in what's going on. And I hate to say that because I love the idea of the Blue Beetle. The character's great. The DC needs young teen heroes like this, but the villain is not interesting. The side characters are largely uninteresting. The art by Scott Collins, which I usually really like, is kind of hit or miss in this, and it's not really a comedy book. It feels like it's trying to toe the line between serious and comedy, and the funny stuff is reasonably funny, and the serious stuff is reasonably dramatic, but it's not really overly succeeding in either category. It's not something like Larfleeze, which for me worked really well by embracing its humor, nor is it something like the classic Justice League where it was able to toe that line so brilliantly. I got to be honest, I'm probably dropping this one soon. I'm going to give it 1 issue to see if DeMatteis can right the ship, so to speak. But otherwise, not really enjoying Blue Beetle very much. Now, on to 2 books that I'm very much enjoying, and it's really hard for me to choose which I enjoyed more, and I'm probably probably going to become victim to recency bias based on one that I read last night, and I'll go with that at number 1. But my next book I want to talk about is Aquaman number 12, part 1 of the Deluge, as Jim Ross once called it, and as he's never talked about Aquaman. But if he were to talk about Aquaman, he would call it the Deluge, I really enjoyed this issue. I thought this was great. I really enjoyed the setup. Black Manta being just a dickhead villain, as only he can do, really crossing that threshold from that villain that you empathize with a little bit to a villain that you just want to see get his ass torn up by Aquaman as he's organizing this false war between Atlantis and Earth. Enjoy all the side. This is the exact opposite of Aquaman. I like all the side characters here, even the weird ones that I'm not sure I'd ever seen before this issue, which there are a few Atlanteans that pop up, like Jurok Biss, the Keeper of the Monsters, who I'm not sure if I had seen before, Zekel Neol, High Lord of the Armies. They're great. They're interesting because this Atlantean culture is interesting, and so very, very high on this series. And this issue is by Dan Abnett and Rob Briones. Actually, I think Rob Briones is a former kicker. The artist is Felipe Briones. Rob Briones was the kicker of the Titans for several years.
And that was Briones, not Briones.
That's right. Briones. Who gives a shit, as you would say in this situation. And the number one issue that I've read in this time period, Green Lanterns, number 15, A Day in the Life, by Sam Humphries and an artist whose name is Miguel Mendonca, or Mendonca, or Mendonça. Miguel, I'll call him. This is terrific. This is a great comic book. Really, really great. One of the best issues of Green Lanterns to date, in my opinion. It's all about an everyday kind of situation for Jessica Cruz, how Jessica deals with her crushing anxiety on a day-to-day basis. And I have read on Twitter, I remember when this issue came out several months ago, I read on Twitter from some people, the usual suspects that don't like Jessica Cruz, say, God, enough of the anxiety already. I'm completely the opposite of those people. I love this comic because that's not how anxiety works. You don't just overcome it and it's done with, which she tells Simon in this issue, because Simon says, I thought you were over this by now. But she raises the point that she's never going to be over it. It's always going to be part of her life. And I think this is such a mature and such an interesting way to approach that, and to tell it in a way that kids could get, that grown-ups could get, that any of us can get, and many of us can empathize with, and the rest of us can at least sympathize with. So just a great comic book that continues rising Jessica Cruz up my list of favorite characters in comics. She's been one of the best additions to the Green Lantern mythos in years. That's taking nothing away from Simon, who's also great here. I also thought this issue did wonders for humanizing Simon Baz, because so often in Green Lanterns even, we've seen Simon as the aggressive, hot-headed member of the team. And here you get to see him calming down and thinking and trying to care for his friend Jessica. So I can't say enough about this issue. There's no villain. There's no climactic fight scene. It's just how a woman deals with anxiety when she's got the weight of the world on her shoulders in this job. So, great issue.
Yeah, glad to hear you enjoyed that one. It's been a while since I've read it, obviously, but I remember liking it very much myself. So, glad to hear you felt the same way.
And that brings us to an end, ladies and gentlemen, of this episode of the Hard-Traveling Fanboys. Once again, I want to thank Todd Weber for joining us to talk about Thor, the Dark World, in what proved to be a unique situation. And we enjoyed that conversation a great deal, talking about that film. Nick, what do we have coming the people's way right here at the old HTF Studios?
Absolutely. So next week, we will be back, and finally, we promise, this time for real, we are going to present to you a very special edition of the Long Book Hunters on the Long Bow Hunters. The following week, we'll be back with a off-the-page, while taking a special look back at Green Lantern Emerald Knights, and then we will be wrapping up the month of August, or our regular episodes for the month of August anyway, with a countdown. Now, what are we going to be counting down? Hard, not for me to say, quite frankly. We were originally supposed to count down our top 5 Marvel Netflix episodes, and this has been on the schedule for many months now. And I thought that perhaps having it on the schedule would spur my esteemed colleague to actually watch some Marvel Netflix. It has not, to this point. Thus, the future of that countdown is dubious at best. You know what else is dubious at best, though, Greg?
What's that?
The very special edition of Giant Size that we'd be bringing to our fans at the end.
We'd be bringing it to our fans, baby.
Nobody asked for it, and yet we're bringing it to you anyway because the month of August will close with the very first installment of Place to Be Nation Pop Comic Book Theater.
What may be the very last edition.
Could be the very last edition.
Badly.
You've heard the trailer at this point. It's been playing in the commercial breaks across the Place to Be Nation Pop network for several weeks now. I can't really think of any better way to describe it than as the trailer describes it. It's Watchmen turned into the most self-referential collection of in-jokes ever assembled.
Yeah, we're taking the greatest graphic novel of all time and we're making it a little bit better.
Making it a little bit better indeed.
With that being said, you can contact us on social media. On Twitter, I am at gphillips8652. He is at nickduke87. You can send us an email, gregp@placetobenation.com, nickd@placetobenation.com, or you can join Place to Be Nation Comics, the Facebook page. Just search for us in your little search bar on Facebook. We will let you in. All you have to do is request to join. We'll put you in. Have lots of great conversation there. Or you can join the conversation on our website on placetobenation.com on this article that you probably were linked to and have clicked on now. You can go down a little bit and you'll see the Discuss feature. Just sign up for a Discuss account if you don't have one and interact. Let us know what you think about the show, what your thoughts are on Thor: The Dark World, and our sure-to-be controversial Marvel Cinematic Universe rankings. And let us know about anything else you thought about the show. Is it for you to say about Joe Manganiello's role as Deathstroke in the DC Extended Universe? Is the DC Extended Universe a dumb name for the DC Cinematic Universe? Let us know what your thoughts are on that.
Who could have been the individual that had the wonderful idea about Damian Wayne and Emiko Queen all those years ago? Let us know your speculative thoughts on who that may or may not have been.
Was the song You're So Vain written about Nick Duke? Let us know in the comments. And with that being said, once again, God, I feel like I've said that 1,000 times in this episode. We'll catch your ass down the road. And remember, folks, when all the dust is settled and the smoke is cleared and our activities here are past, we want they bury us upside down and our critics can kiss our ass.
When you hear their show, you better run for cover. Klondike Bill's a sausage lover. Ooh, hard-traveling fanboys. It's a weekly podcast and you better listen. They keep your ears in mid-condition. Ooh, hard-traveling fanboys. 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 Got 2 weekly segments coming to your town. Reading, watching, and